ho, ho, and a bottle of brass monkey. What's going on? It's the Badass Records Podcast. This is your host, Blair Johnson, here to welcome you to another episode of the podcast, which is about people and some of their favorite music. I think it's November now by the time this is out, and just letting you know that new episodes are typically out Thursdays. You can catch them on badassrecordspodcast.com or on the YouTube channel, or find audio where you stream. No video this week, but if you're on the tube or on the site, give it a look regardless, because there are some fantastic photography. You can keep up with the podcast on Twitter or on Instagram. If you want to do an in-person episode with me here in Kansas City, or if you'd like me to come to you, hit me up at badassrecordspodcast@gmail.com. We will make it happen. It's badassrecordspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoy the show. So here we are. Episode 90, Badass Records Podcast. Meg Kumin. I had it out the other day. I was like, Mary. I am super excited. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Like I said, episode 90. However, we have to go back to almost a full year ago, late December, rolling up on Christmas time. Episodes 50, 51, and 52. All three gals. Mm-hmm. And then I had another one at 55. All dudes since.
Really? I looked at some point and I was like, they're all out, but I didn't take inventory. Seriously?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you hit the local music scene. Probably.
I guess.
Then you, I don't.
Lots of folks either outright like, no, I don't want to do that. Or like if I run into you, hey, and they're like, yeah, and then privately they're like, oh, you were serious? No. And then lots of folks, mostly girls, but some guys too. Oh yeah, I wouldn't be a good guest. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'll be the judge. Yeah, I want to know your story. Like, what are you talking about? And it's a tough sell. Like, I don't want to say we're going to talk about you, and then you get stage fright. But I don't want to emphasize the music too much, because people think it's going to be some kind of contest, some kind of knowledge debate. It's like, no, dude. I mean, anyway. So thank you. Mm-hmm. Very fun. Great to have some female presence in the room again. We know each other from high school.
Yes, we do.
But have we seen each other since?
Yes.
We really?
When Amin first came back in town, were you around?
My God.
Like high school reunion, it might have been.
Were you his host family?
What?
Were you his host?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
I had forgotten that piece.
Yeah. He came back. My dad passed away.
I know. I'm sorry.
He came back for that, which was amazing.
Somebody, maybe it was Dan Gedman, had people over a couple months ago, and somebody was, maybe Chris Kemp? Somebody there was like, he's going to be in town, and then I never heard anything, but I thought it was like a planned trip.
He is going to come back for your guys' reunion.
Oh, that's what it was. Which got pushed.
Yes.
Because of the
Casey Curran.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You're 94, right?
Yeah.
But you're in the loop with.
I didn't know until Amin came.
Okay.
And told me. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah. Which I am not a person that like raises my hand to volunteer and organize a lot of things, but it was like no one else was either. Mm-hmm. And so a guy in our class was like, I work out at the K. We should get a suite, during the blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't want to go out to fucking Truman Sports Complex in July and stand, and so, and then somebody just like, we're doing it next year. I was like, oh shit, okay. Yeah, but also cool. Well, that'll be fun, man. So he came for
my dad's funeral.
But before that?
It's been a while. It's been a long while.
But you think we saw one another then?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would have been maybe 2012, 2011.
Okay.
Or even he came one other time. And
wow.
Then.
Now he's married with kids, right?
Divorced. With a daughter.
Okay.
And he was getting ready. There's like, I need my phone. There's this.
Get it.
Tiny little island off the coast of Norway that has like 17 people on it.
What?
That's right next to the Russian waters, and they need like one Norwegian military person to like take up residence on the island. And he was probably going to end up doing it, and so he was going to go live in the middle. Where is it? You can find it pretty easily. Let me get him out. So let's see, right there.
Whoa! No, thank you.
Jan Mayen, yeah, tiny. It's like 17 people. So that's where he's gonna probably go spend the next year.
Well, he probably wouldn't get to see his kid.
No, she's away at college.
Oh, I mean, they're in the neighborhood that you're in as far as how long you've been a parent.
Oh yeah.
Because
his daughter's a couple years older than mine.
Girl and two boys?
A boy and two girls.
Boy and two girls, sorry.
In that order.
And then they're all teenagers?
Yes. One's 19, the other one's 17, the other one's 15.
Okay. What's 19 doing?
Sophomore at KU.
Okay.
Majoring in English, philosophy, and a minor in visual arts.
Wow.
All the useless degrees in one.
Hey.
But he wants to teach, so it's perfect for that.
Yeah, that's great. So you wind up spending a lot of time up there, right? So
yeah.
Do you guys get to like grab a lunch or?
He has celiac disease.
Okay.
Do you know what that is? Allergic to gluten.
Yes.
Well, not allergic, but he has an autoimmune disease related to gluten. So my husband cooks for him, and I take the food, and then we sit in the parking lot, and I deliver food, and we get to talk like once or twice a week, and just hang out in the car. It's really nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, so how long have you been married then? Like 20-ish?
I got married in 2002. I don't know how long I've been married. 21 years?
Wow.
We met right before I went away to college.
Okay.
2 weeks before I went away to college in a parking lot and started dating. So we dated about 7 years and then got married.
2 weeks before you went away to college?
He had moved back after not doing well in college.
Okay.
And so we had a long distance relationship for about a year and a half.
And
then he moved to Lawrence, and they moved back. We broke up at some point.
But you're still a baby then. That's wild.
When we went on our honeymoon, I think I was 27. We'd been dating like 8 years. Nobody could like believe that we've been dating it because we look like children.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have a much better memory than I do. But if I reach all the way back to high school, I really like two things about you: photography and Dan. I mean,
can we forget about the second half?
Well, it's not an intentional pain point. It's literally like thinking, like, what do I know about Meg? You know, I mean, you were like, what was your role in the yearbook?
I was just a photographer for 2 years, and then I was photo editor of the newspaper.
Oh, of the newspaper? Okay, maybe newspaper. We must have been
on the newspaper.
Crossing paths then. Yeah. Who was editor-in-chief?
I don't remember. I was photo editor my senior year, and I think just a photographer my junior year.
Okay.
So I
junior probably would have been Nate, or
right.
or maybe Amy Porter. Was she?
It was Amy, I think.
Was it? Okay. Because
Mike was.
But we're talking newspaper. But Mike was.
I forget.
Yeah. But I think you could only have the editor-in-chief thing for a semester.
Oh, is that right?
Maybe. So that's maybe why Nate and Amy
had the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. It's so much is lost.
I actually took the kids out to Virginia 2 summers ago and stayed a week with Nate and his family. And I still give him grief for selecting Scott Alport as his sports editor instead of me. He's like
Scott Alport was the sports editor?
Nate's choice. And we were buddies since sixth grade, and my name was in the hat too. And I said the same thing in 19 like. So I actually found. So most of our crew is on. Well, we had to move to WhatsApp because Sean Kirkwood is in Canada. His phone is not the problem. It's Nate's because Nate.
You can't talk to Canada?
Nate was in Canada. So he went to Westminster, and then he went to the University of Maine for grad school, and then he moved to St. John's, Newfoundland for his PhD. And while there, I mean, both of his kids were born there, and they give 12 months paid maternity leave.
My sister was there.
Okay. But whatever street vendor mobile provider he signed up for at the time, he still has. So it's like we've tried every iteration, and there's 11 people. I mean, at one point it was like 10 was the max in a text thread, and they've changed that. But it's like we've taken every single person out and plug, and then but if Nate's in there, then Kirkwood can't see it. It's so weird. Anyway, so we moved to WhatsApp, and mostly we're just talking Chiefs and being silly.
Oh,
and
that's fun. Who all is that?
So Sam Milton was the most recent addition. Kirkwood, Matt Smith, Sean Smith, me, Matt Gronke, Ed Lee, Mike is on there. A guy named Sean Roberts who went to South, but was real good buddies with everybody that went to Lawrence because he was or in a house next to their house. I don't even know, but and who else? Bill Mock.
Oh yeah, Billy Mock.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Who? I mean, he just his oldest is a freshman at KU right now.
Oh really? That's funny.
Yeah, it was. They live out in Shawnee, and that's kind of they have a really nice modern house, which is valuable to my daughter. And so if we get invited to watch games over there, she always And when Maddie was big time hooper, like when Shawnee Mission Northwest when the Lady Cougars would have games and they would tweet game day, it's like a picture of her. I mean, she had all these schools like come play, and near when spring neared and graduation neared, she's like, I'm done with basketball. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. I mean, that's true. But anyway, so Scott was at one point on Jeopardy. And so
That's right.
old Harbinger stories came up, and we're talking this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, I bet. And I found a Google image picture, and I was saying nothing. I was because I'll if I can easily get baited into being like, who is your sports editor, and so and I just threw that picture in there, and Nate's like, is that Scott? It is your sports editor, bro.
I actually tried to look him up a while ago.
Okay.
It looks like he's a rabbi in New York somewhere.
Really? I should have given him a buzz on Saturday.
It was only like one. It's not an active rabbi position. Like, there was one mention of Rabbi Scott Alport from Kansas.
Wow. Well, if you tap images, it's not far.
Okay.
And it's just like, it looks like Jeopardy. I mean, somebody took a picture of their TV or something.
It was Scott.
Right. Yeah. So aside from choosing your life partner 3 years before you were legally old enough to drink,
Right.
and having 3 children, and doing photography for KU, and then what's the other piece?
I teach 2 classes, and I'm a PhD student now. But,
Really? Cool.
Yeah, I've been taking classes for a year and a half, but I entered the PhD program this fall.
Okay.
I get 12 credit hours a year paid by KU. So I'm going to chip away at my PhD while I'm working because
Cool.
I don't think I want to be a photographer past 55.
Okay.
It's just really hard on your body. So
Okay.
this is my exit plan.
Okay. But I mean, there's another, what other piece communications wise do you do? You shoot photo. We were just talking about a second. My team. There's another element.
Digital media team.
Okay.
So we do all of the like photo, video, anything that goes on YouTube, anything that goes on Facebook, Instagram, any long format.
Not
interviews.
TikTok.
We do TikTok, but we leave most of the TikTok content to students.
Okay.
To generate.
Okay.
I did want to say I brought an essay that I wrote.
Get it out. You kidding me?
And because it'll answer a lot of questions and give you some jumping point. You want me to read it?
Yeah, please.
Because I hope I have it. I left it in my car. I can pull it up on my phone. Yeah, I'll read it. So let me read it first, and then, then we can ask some questions. And I've never actually read it on my phone, so we'll see how this goes.
Okay.
Let's see. It's about 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll tell you how I ended up. Well, part of the essay will tell you how I ended up writing it. Okay. Give me a sec. All right.
Is it in your notes?
No, it was published on someone's blog, and she had people write essays on what they do for a living. What do you do for a living? And
so you wrote it for this blog?
I wrote it for this blog, yes.
How long ago?
10 years ago. Wow. And it's going to be really interesting when you hear it.
So where are you going to the URL where it lives? And
it's on workstu.com.
Okay, but how is it not buried by now? How do you get right to it? Do you have the link saved or something?
Kumin is like a very unique word in the title, and it is the first link when you type it in.
Like in a Google search?
Yeah.
Oh wow, cool. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Kumin, there aren't very many Kumins in the world. So.
No, not with a K.
There's a Maxine Kumin who.
Oh
is,
yeah. She's an author.
Yeah, children's author.
Well, she wrote something famous.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. You know her, but. She's one of the only people that come up in my Google searches. I think the M confuses it. And it's...
Before you read it, that's super cool that you're going for your PhD. Nate.
What was his in?
Like salmon conservation.
Oh. That makes sense.
He's like, I'm going to butcher this, but he's like over all of the fish hatcheries.
Oh, cool.
In the country, and then his wife is also in some kind of sciencey thing. I'm sorry, Kate. She's an amazing person and super smart. But there was a lot of politics not like directly, but sort of peripherally affiliated with his program or his PhD, and it was like. His mentor, you have a person like
an advisor,
changed or they left, and there was something about it that really altered the path. And he was like, I feel like he had to defend his dissertation.
Oh no!
And it was when for years I thought he was Dr. Nathan Wilkie, and going out to Virginia. He was like, I didn't finish. And I was like, what? And then he explained it, and I was like, oh, yeah, fuck that. I mean, you have all the knowledge.
So he never actually got it?
No.
Oh,
no.
That made me so mad.
I know. But he's, Nate's an interesting creature. The way that he presented it to me led me to believe that he's at peace with it. I would still...
Well, doing the work that he does, he probably did it for the work and not for the...
Right.
Unless he wants to teach, and then it might be a problem.
Yeah. Well, I did. So I was, when I was at Pitt State, I declared communications, and then I moved to Fort Lewis and switched to psychology. But I'm doing all of this stuff in communications, and I took 4 years Spanish at East, and then 3 more in college. And I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, I'm going to be a writer. So as I'm approaching like my final semester, it's like you like are this close to minors in communications, literature, and Spanish. Pick one. Like, don't let this go to waste. Somebody was like, don't let that. And I was like, well, I'm already fluent. I've got 3 years. I was a staff writer on the newspaper, and then I was the A&E editor. And then the radio show. It's like, I've got all this communications experience. Well, I'll just do literature. So I did that and I loved it, and it sort of fueled my sparking passion for writing. And so when I finished, I was like, I'm definitely going to go to grad school. But what's it going to be? Is it going to be psych? Is it going to be, English? And all the people in psych were like, if you go into psych, do something like in the administrative direction, because you'll find, unless you're going to go PhD and get a practice, you'll find that like real quick you'll hit your income potential ceiling, unless
You have.
and I was like, that doesn't sound. So
Right.
it took me 7 years to decide. And I moved back here in 2000. And in 2005, I entered the creative writing program at UMKC.
Oh, did you?
And that's what I got my master's in. So,
cool.
I mean, don't, all the, what'd you say? All the useless degrees.
Right.
Like totally, not totally, very largely unemployable.
That's the way. They're not useless.
Greatest experience,
Oh, yeah.
one of the greatest experiences ever. I absolutely loved it. It really, I sort of had the ingredients to be a writer in a bag over my shoulder, and this helped me. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, you'll like this essay. Okay. I always get a little nervous reading it. So I read this. So I've taught freshmen since 2018. And anytime I teach, I read this on the first day of class. And it's a really good way.
I'm sorry, you've taught how long?
I teach in the fall only once a year.
Okay.
Since 2018.
Okay.
So I'm on my 7th or 8th class. Okay, so I'm going to read it now. Oh my gosh. Okay. When I was 2, my father told me, if you know what you want to do by age 32, you're going to be all right. I probably threw my Cheerios at him. I was 6 when my father told me, if you know what you want to do by age 32, you're going to be all right. I thought 32 was old, ancient old, and I had all the time in the world. I was 12 when my father told me, if you know what you want to do by age 32, you're going to be all right. By then, all the career and personality tests had told me I was exceptional at math and spatial reasoning, and I should be an engineer. I wasn't sure I agreed. I was 17 when my father told me, if you know what you want to do by age 32, you're going to be all right. By this time, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. 2 years earlier, I'd picked up my dad's 1970-something Nikon camera and fallen in love with the lens. I took classes and put a darkroom in my parents' basement. I became photo editor of the newspaper and photographer for the yearbook. I spent all of high school behind the camera and under the dim red light of the darkroom. What did I want to be when I grew up? I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer. I wanted to follow Jane Goodall around the primate world. I wanted to capture the next Afghan girl. I wanted this, but also knew it was a pipe dream and never ever going to happen unless I got really good. I was 21 when my father told me, if you know what you want to do by age 32, you're going to be all right. This time I was on the cusp of graduating college with a degree in American Studies with a focus on race, ethnicity, and culture. I stumbled into the degree following a thirst for understanding people and identities. It was a discipline that taught me to read, think, and write, and I loved it. But I was no Cornell West, and I worried I'd spend the rest of my life waitressing. So I spent my 4th and 5th year taking engineering electives, including calculus, physics, and computer programming. It was coding that lit up my mind. It was like one never-ending puzzle, and I loved it. I began to think that maybe those career tests were right. Following graduation, I pursued a master's in computer science. I was 27 when my father told me, if you know what you want to do by age 32, you're going to be all right. This time I smiled, and so did he. I'd figure out what I wanted to be. I just landed the best job in the world as a software developer at the University of Kansas Biodiversity Institute, writing biological collections management software for natural history museums. I got married, and 3 months later we found out we were pregnant rather unexpectedly. Within a year of landing the best job ever, we welcomed our whoopsie baby, and I had a crisis of identity. Did I want to be a grown-up inhabiting the working world, or did I want to get lost in my child's world? I decided I wanted it all. Fortunately, my boss was more than accommodating. I became an anomaly in the mommy wars. I was a full-time employee who brought my baby into the office. With a bouncy seat next to my keyboard, I tickled his tiny toes while I wrote Java code. I was 32 when we welcomed our third born to the world. We also welcomed the rotavirus and influenza, and sick days quickly outpaced accrued leave. It became clear that being the mother I wanted to be and having the career I thought was for me was unsustainable. I quit my job as a software developer to stay at home and be a childware developer. I was 32 when my father told me, your mother's in the hospital. The doctors say she has a tumor that runs from her ear, down her neck, along her spine, into her armpit, and onto her lung. The prognosis is not good. I was 32 when my father had a nervous breakdown, not the metaphorical kind, but literal catatonia. The doctor said he needed an institution and a dose of shock therapy, or the prognosis would not be good. I was 32 when neither parent could care for the other. For the next year and a half, it didn't matter what I wanted to do. I did what I had to do. I got to wear my stay-at-home mom hat and my chemo buddy hat and my power of attorney hat. I might have looked all grown up, but I was navigating life like a 6-year-old behind the wheel of a Mack truck. How I got through it without becoming an addict or clinically depressed is the topic of a story I will probably never write. After my mom passed, I found writing, and the words poured out of me. I read and wrote and wrote and read, and I used the voice inside my fingers to try to make sense of where I'd been, who I'd become, and who I wanted to be. I picked up my camera and began attending to small wonders, and it filled me with the love of life again. I was 35 when Kate Gase Walton butted into my life and did this thing that she does. She asked me, what do you do? Will you write about it? Little did she know it was a loaded question, as virulent and unsettling as this year's flu. It's been 2 years since Kate first asked me to write this essay. I wish I said I blew it off, but I didn't. I obsessed about it. Countless times I closed my eyes and asked myself, what do you want to do? Again and again, I thought about where I'd been and what I'd done, and I thought about what I'd regret having never done, and the picture became clear. I wanted to live life in Kodachrome and capture it with the lens. So I took a plunge. I built a website and made a plan. I announced to the world, I'm doing it. While 32 is my father's number, perhaps 37 is mine. I may not be a National Geographic photographer, but I'm on a path of passion and no regrets, and it feels better than all right.
Dude, so good.
Isn't that a good one?
Yeah.
So I wrote that. That was in 2013, and I started taking pictures and started taking like pictures of friends' kids, and then families, and then I did a family, and there was a woman who started something called the Vow Exchange, which was a high-end elopement venue. So it was like a little white chapel in Kansas City, and so you'd just like show up and everything would be taken care of for you, and you walk out the door. And so I was a photographer for that and did maybe 60 weddings. They were all like shot, so I do like 3 weddings in a day, and that's when I got really good, just because you have to really
turn and burn, baby.
Yeah, and you're working in the same environment, so that was really good, and did that for about 2 years when the job at KU opened up, and I applied for it and I got it, and that's how I became a photographer.
Wow.
Right?
What a story.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
You can see why it's really good when I'm like talking to freshmen, just like being really like open and vulnerable and candid. Like just I build a lot of trust, and there's like you can just I start and everybody's like, like this. And like their whole bot like they're just like relaxed, and you see trust, and like it's just a really good way to bond, and it just covers a lot of ground, and it's entertaining. And I like that I do a lot of like, how do you create the life that you want? And we talk about creating the vision that you want. And it's a really good testament to like
18-year-olds need that.
You create your vision and it can happen.
And I don't think get it.
No,
often.
they don't. No, they don't. And I'm really good at teaching that. And so that's how, so I've been teaching, I taught like a generic freshman class. It's just goals, wellness, information literacy, social justice, those sorts of issues that first semester, and I co-taught. But the next semester, I taught one called Creativity University in You. So it was all that stuff, but it was like through the lens of creativity. And then I taught that once. That was in the fall of 2019, my version of Creativity University in You. And so that semester we met with like visiting artists, and there's like interpretive dancers and like that sort of stuff. So we'd go meet them on campus, and that was the way I did creativity. Then the pandemic hit, and this is what I really like. So I interviewed lots of people. It's really interesting to see how the pandemic shifted people's like process and thinking and art, and like people who were always painting like suddenly took a new format or a new size. But anyway, so the pandemic hit, and I was thinking about teaching in the fall as like social distancing was happening, and everything was going virtual, and I was like, how the fuck am I going to teach experiential learning and visit with artists? And we did lots of interactive class stuff, and when you're sitting 6 feet apart and wearing masks, so I started just like, while everybody was watching like binging on Netflix, whatever it was during lockdown. I was like, creativity, just searching Amazon, just started ordering book after book after
cool.
book after book.
And reading them all?
And reading them
Wow.
all, yeah. I was kind of obsessive about it. It was definitely, everybody had like their thing. Like,
Yeah.
Either they gardened or they ran or they whatever. Mine was like reading about creative. So I read like 12 books over the course of that summer, and came across Carol Dweck is someone, you've heard of the growth mindset.
I think so.
Growth mindset. She's the one who kind of coined the phrase. And so I started reading that. And so it got more into like creative thinking as opposed to creativity, like creative output. And so I've been teaching that fall. I taught in person, hybrid, synchronous. So this is like the
some people are there and some people are on
the camera, on projection, and it was just, it was a clusterfuck.
I bet.
It was really stressful.
If you would have said it was seamless and smooth, I would have been like,
right,
bullshit.
Yeah. But I was able to like talk about mindset and talk about how the pandemic had shifted and talk about how you find like creative solutions to problems and looking at like a problem that we'd all never, and so there are lots of real life examples of how people were like changing their mindset and adapting what they're doing. So it became this really interesting way to like kind of navigate and teach during the pandemic. And I really got interested in it about that time. I think I started journaling a lot.
Pen and paper?
Pen and paper, which I did all through high school and college. And
you have them still?
As soon as these came out, I kind of, what?
Do you still have them?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, I've kind of poked through them, but I haven't read all of them. But ever since I got this, I used to write before bed was kind of like my thing.
At some point I was going to ask, if you're a person that is, I got to put my butt in the chair, like, are you somebody that hits the same time every day, or are you all over the place?
No, all over the place, all over the place. And so I was writing through the pandemic. I was like going to Shimish Park, and I'd sit in the car and like just dig it out of the house and write in the car. And in hindsight, I look back and I journaled for about 6 months, and then I signed up for PhD class, like graduate level.
Wow.
Class. Like it was just there's like some sort of inertia that like happened.
Sure.
And so, because ever since I started back at KU, at that point you could get one free class a semester paid for. And I was like, I should do this. Free education, business supports it. You can take whatever, you've got all of KU and you can take whatever you want. You don't have to pay for it. I was like, but it took me like 7 years of living life. I had kids, young, it's like to have 10 and 13-year-olds, so there just wasn't time. But at that point I was like, I'm going to take a class, but I didn't know. I knew I wanted to do more school, but I didn't know if I wanted to do an MFA or if I wanted to go back to American Studies, or if I wanted, maybe to go into film. I was looking at psychology, communications, journalism. Do I want to, go get a marketing degree? So I was looking at all these things, but none of them felt right. And at some point, I did a portrait. My partner did a portrait, and I was like holding the reflector, and it was one of KU had hired like, I think like 10, they called them foundation faculty, but they were like mid-career, top tier, like heavy hitters with super salaries, like the kind where like aren't typical academic. It was part of some initiative, and he's a leader in the field of in entrepreneurial education. And so while I'm talking to him, I was like, yeah, I've always wanted to go back to school, and I was telling him how I got American Studies, and I was computer science, and I was a photographer. He's like, you should do a PhD with me. And I was like, huh? And he's technically a professor of educational psychology. I was like, whatever, what is that? Like, what is that? But that was like, so that's sad.
That's not even real, bro.
Right. So that sat on the back burner for the last 3 or 4 years.
Cool.
And so as I was coming back, I was like, educational. And so I was like, maybe education. Like I really am enjoying, I was teaching,
Sure.
and I was really enjoying it. And so I looked, and KU has an educational psychology program. And so the first class I took was the neuroscience of motivation and emotional behavior.
What a mouthful.
What?
What a mouthful of a course title.
Right. My sister is a behavioral neuroendocrinologist. She's got her PhD and teaches
kidneys?
Neuroscience. What?
Endocrine, is that?
Behavioral neuroendocrinology. She studies.
But does that have to do with kidney function?
No. She studies birds. The way that hormones affect behavior, basically.
Okay.
In the brain.
Sure.
So she in particular studies birds. She
Cool.
gets them to mate, and then like tries to make them jealous, and then cuts open the brains to see like what's going
Whoa.
on, what hormones are like triggering anger and
Where?
territory. She's in Minneapolis at the University of St. Thomas.
Okay.
So I've always like had this like world of neuroscience that has kind of been peripheral to me. And
Older sister?
No, younger.
Younger.
And then all through the 90s.
Just the two of you?
Just the two of
Okay.
us, yeah. All through the 90s and all through college, I liked magazines. I always subscribed to magazines, and my favorite magazine was Scientific American Mind. And so that looking at like how the mind works and how, and so it's kind of like I'm not surprised I ended back there. So I took that class. I took 3 classes, one each semester, and then just decided to apply to the PhD program last fall.
Okay.
Got accepted in the spring, and I'm
Congratulations.
officially a PhD student now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you're taking one class and teaching one class.
I'm teaching 2 classes.
And what are those?
Taking 1 class.
What-
I'm teaching the Creativity University in You,
Okay.
which is the freshman seminar.
Mm-hmm.
I have 19 freshmen, and then a similar class for the honors program called the Creative Mindset. So it's kind of the same stuff, but it's a little more rooted in neuroscience, and it's a little more, they're honor students. I can do a lot more with them.
Those are the
because-
2 that you're teaching?
Yeah.
And the one you're taking is called?
Which one am I taking? Human human development through the lifespan.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember I had a similarly named course.
Oh, yeah.
As a sophomore
As a sophomore, yeah.
in undergrad. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So do you have pretty firm to bed and to rise times with all of this going on?
For the most part,
'Kay.
yeah. And one of the things I teach is like holistic wellness and all of the pillars to like being your optimized self, and sleep 8 hours is pretty non-negotiable.
I
for me.
know. Well, I mean, it should be for everybody. But
It's not, and I noticed like a whole change in me when I started doing that. And, I used to be like stay up till 3 writing and then get up at 7, but when I go to bed at 10 every night and wake up at 7 every day, my life flows a lot easier. I stayed up till midnight last night because I took the day off today, and then I was dragging all day.
Why'd you take the day off, and why'd you stay up so late?
I took the day off because I work a lot of overtime hours at my, I work, so I shot late night and football games, so there's a lot of evening and weekends. So I need to like flex out every once in a while.
Yeah.
And since I had you, I was like, I'll take the day off. That way my brain's not all zapped, and I can just, and so I spent the day, and I stayed up late last night because in my honors class a couple weeks ago, we went to the library, the library makerspace. And there's a librarian there who is a certified serious play Lego master. So there's you go through extensive training. It's really expensive, but basically it's working with adults and Legos to deal with ideation and problem solving and that sort of stuff.
Wow.
And so she did the typical workshop, I think is 4 hours. If you were to go into a business and work with middle managers. So we just did a 45-minute class session. And so, she gives each person a little package of Legos, and then
Random.
No, they were all kind of matching, and I think there's some strategy to that type of pieces, but it was just a pile about that big. And then so in the class we made vision boards, and we're going to make a vision board for a research question for them. And so we created, a vision of yourself out of Legos, and then a vision of the research, a research question with Legos. And so it was just a really, the kids all love Legos, and it kind of takes them back. And it was really amazing to
I bet.
hear them talk about what it was. And a couple of them said that it really helped them formalize some thoughts in their head that were kind of nebulous that came out as they're building it.
Cool.
So it was really cool. So I want to do it with my other class. And my son's a Lego nerd, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it myself. I thought about I was like, I'm gonna try this myself. And so I spent all of last night digging through Legos, trying to figure out, trying to replicate kind of what she had, as far as the types of things.
Okay.
And I mean, it's just big old bucks. So I was just digging through Legos and finally I was like, you have to go to bed. And then so today I spent 3 hours just, and it's a meditation.
Chilling.
That was my favorite thing with my son was sorting. I didn't like building Legos. I love sorting Legos.
Oh.
I don't know what it is.
Oh.
But by size or by color or by type or
Oh,
whatever. So it's
wow.
kind of like a
We're all about sets, so it's like the Millennium Falcon.
yes.
And
Well, we're about that,
okay.
but there's also the pre-obsession with like the when I'm a little kid and I don't give a shit. So all of that's been broken down. So we have tons there. And then my mother-in-law saved my husband's and so there's probably like a Tupperware bin about this big, and it's all the old school like Legos from the 80s.
Wow.
So we've got all those. So I was just picking through and getting all that sort of stuff. So that's what I've been doing the last 24 hours.
So, and what does your husband do?
IT.
Okay. And you guys are 19 and 13, and then one in the middle. Is that?
Yes, 17.
And so, I mean, are there things that you still need to do on a daily basis for your 13-year-old, or is
15. It's 15.
Is the youngest?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Youngest.
Okay.
No, she's like that close to like leaving the house as soon as we let her.
Wow. I mean,
that's why I'm starting a PhD now.
right.
Right.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying not to be too hard on myself, but 6, maybe there's a snooze in there, and then it's up, and they both have to practice piano. And I don't want to say I go out of my way, but I mean, I'm thinking about it the night before, and when I get it, what am I making for breakfast? So something hot, something different than yesterday, and so then getting ready, and teeth and hair and shoes and all the things, and I mean, and then 7:35. Our school is just 2 blocks away, so 7:35 is our walkout time. So I mean, like an hour and a half is literally
like a marathon.
Like we have all the time in the world until we're running late, and it's like they would be fine. They could. I mean, she could fry an egg. They could get themselves ready. They could, make breakfast. They could get all their things and get out the door. But it would be flirting with disaster 10 out of 10 times.
And people would be yelling and
yeah, and the two of them would probably, get into an argument or whatever. But it's like, it's a really weird line to walk as a parent when you approach this kind of topic, because it's like I so look forward to them being a little bit more independent, but I also don't want them to have it. There's 4 million things that I wish I would have done differently when they were younger. And I mean, she's a 2 days before Christmas baby, and she cannot get to 13 fast enough. And I just
buckle up, Blair.
Oh, dude, I know it's
now to 15 and a half is just it's brutal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just wish they were babies still. But also it's like when you do get to have some semblance of independence, like I can peel back and maybe give that time to myself. But it'll be here before
It'll be here before you know.
Yeah,
it, for sure.
exactly. So you and younger sister, born and raised.
Yes.
And okay, okay. So what did you weren't at Indian Hills?
Yeah.
You were. Well, we would have been there at the same time.
Yeah, I don't remember you from middle school.
Huh.
I think I was very much in my grade, and like middle school. So,
I mean, maybe that we had those out too the other night. But what was elementary school for you?
Highlands.
Okay, so Bill was a Highlands kid.
That's how I know Bill.
And then how did your folks meet?
They met. Oh yeah. My dad was being set up with my mom's best friend on a blind date, but she got engaged somehow or whoever, so my mom kind of was a stand-in.
Okay. Huh. And did they were they folks that put music on in the home to listen to when you guys were little?
Yeah, a lot of classical music.
Okay, interesting.
A lot of classical.
Are they?
Music.
I mean, the things that you have just been describing academically, and professionally for yourself, and with brief mention for your sister, I call that smart people shit. I imagine you did pretty well at East.
Yeah. Ish, yeah.
I mean, if they're listening to classical music, they're probably smart people too.
They were both PhDs.
They were?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were both professors at UMKC.
I don't want to like dwell on this, but you've been on my mind a lot over the last few months. My dad passed in 2002, and in January, my sister and I, mostly my sister, moved my mom into a community living place. She has her car there, and does all the but like her memory is dog shit. Like and she just nothing is sticking. And she's got a really bad hip and a really, really poor diet. In fact, right now we're in my poor sister.
Tiffany, right?
Yeah. I don't know how many prescriptions she has. But her thyroid is out of control. And she will not get cleared for a hip replacement surgery, which she needs badly until her labs look better. And so, going back a year and a half ago, Tiff bought one of these pill boxes, and, it did nothing. And now and then transitioned to like there's some sort of an alarm that goes off, and still. So like 2 Sundays ago, we had family celebration for my son's birthday. And she, she doesn't know anything really that's going on in my life because there's not really a point in telling her. Because I'll just have that same conversation 50 more times. Yeah. So on the way out the door, she's like, I'm gonna have a procedure done soon. And I said, a procedure? What are you talking about? She said, well, I need a hip replacement. I was like, you've needed a hip replacement for blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, cool. I mean, keep me in the loop. And then I called my sister, and she's like, no, I mean, so, and she, our relationship has been strained for a long time.
You and your mom?
Yeah. Like we get along, but we don't see eye to eye on, or now it's moot. It doesn't matter. But, for many years we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And she, she would probably be happier on a much higher level if Tiffany had kids, because they're very close. I mean, she drives Tiffany more batty than she drives me because they interact a lot more often. And like she was really, and she still was very, high functioning when my dad died, but she was very, very weird. In that, she just couldn't see her role, her space in the grief and the loss, but really wanted to be a part of everything that everybody was going through. And so, a lot of really weird and unintentionally hurtful things, and just a lot of oddities. And then a year later, her grief was born. And it was like, dude, I just fucking washed this outfit,
Right. I can't go back.
Yeah. I, since starting this, you mentioned stuff with people and COVID and pandemic, and so like the guy who has the theater in Shawnee, this historic. There's original pictures around from when this thing was they're black and white. I'll tell you that much. And it sat empty forever.
Oh, wow.
And so there was all of the, he and his brother, came up with this plan to get this thing and bring it back to life and remodel it and revitalize it. and there were so many hurdles and red tape and weird scenarios, and they finally I mean, they were going to cut ribbon and announce a grand opening, pandemic, and the seats are like very, very nice, and it's set up for film. Well, so then they had to pivot and like, well, we got to do live shows, and it's like, well, these fucking seats are not coming out. I mean, so they have a very small dance floor, you know, and right. I don't know the exact timing, but it was like, okay, we're ready to roll, ready to get this thing open. We've pivoted. This is now our new, and his brother passes away. And lots of folks who like open a live music venue or a restaurant or a bar, and it's like they just need a signature on this final thing, and they're ready to go, and they have needed revenue forever because the spend is all, you know, whatever small business loan or whatever it is. It's like all of this investment, and now you need to start gaining some of that pandemic hits. I had a guest on here whose both parents died, like boom and then boom, and not, you know, they had health stuff, but dad ultimately ended up having kidney failure, and then mom like, even though they for years sort of cobbled together a functioning household that, you know, was once here and it kind of fell to here, but it was still manageable. And I think it got to the point where like literally clutter would be a stick in the spokes, because it's like meds are out, but there's a stack of shit on top of them and they can't find them anywhere. Things like that. So, you know, dad was doing dialysis and so on and so forth. And then mom, I mean, as soon as dad was gone, mom's health, and then she was, and so I hadn't seen her in a handful of years, not as long as, but, and it was like neither one of them got COVID, but it was a thing that she, and anyway, for folks that have had that happen, you know, I've never, that I can recall, heard somebody say, I'm an orphan, and not referring to like Annie, you know, in that kind of scenario. And I was like, huh? And then I was like, oh wow, that is really weird. And so I've, you know, felt that way for some time. I have 3 younger sisters. My folks got divorced, and then they each remarried, and my dad had 2 daughters. And so, you know, he had lots of functional issues of his own, which is why he died when he did. But also, like 100% the only person that I'm going to go to for advice and counsel. And when he died, I was like, now what? I mean, like, how do I don't know. Well, I don't know I know where the DMV is, but you know, like it's shit like that.
Right.
That, you know, hey, I know, Dad, and it's like, fuck, I took that shit for granted, and then the absence is. So anyway, you've been on my mind a lot. I feel for you, and really remarkable everything that you have happening, and if you don't get told kudos often, you should. I mean,
well,
so
I try to tell myself some of that. Well, you know, there's like more to that story. So, and it's kind of an interesting. So writing this made me realize that I could do anything, like, and anything that I had told myself I couldn't do, like I was the one that was telling me that I couldn't do it, and so it kind of like opened this door, and I started like doing the things that I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer, so I ended up at KU, right? And one of the first things I went after was there's a paleontologist who had a Tyrannosaurus Rex dig out in Montana, and I was like, I want. That's my National Geographic adventure. That's that's what I want. And so
I'm going.
So I talked to my boss. I was like, we need to follow this researcher. He's like, no, we don't have the budget for that. And I kept pushing. I am a very pushy, like persistent person, and it was no. And finally, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to take vacation time and I'm just going to go out there with them and I'm going to take pictures and KU will use them and I'm just going to make it happen. I'll camp, I'll do this. And I started to like try to get a videographer, my teammate, to go with me. And as I was making the plans, my boss was like, well, let me see what we can do.
Not now. That window closed for you, buddy.
Well, no, he found some funding for a hotel and he went and our videographer went and I went out to Montana and followed these researchers for, I think it was about a week. So we drove out there together. And while we're doing it, you're there for a while. So I took out a pickaxe and I'm digging and I actually like one of the specimens that goes with the T-Rex, I like pulled out of the stone, like found it and thought that was like really cool. And then I went to Wikipedia. I was like, how many T-Rexes are there? And like, there's only like 50 to 100 T-Rexes in the world. And I've touched one of them.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, and then once that happened, I was like, oh, like, and so I just kind of like started doing all the stuff that I had always wanted to do in this sort of way. And then, so I started at KU in 2015, right? So I spent that first couple of years just like on the floor about field house. I'm doing everything, really enjoying it. Shot Bill Clinton, just left and right, making the world. And June of 2017, I got diagnosed with breast cancer.
You did?
Yeah.
Did you? Weird question. Did you post about that?
I have.
You have.
Every once in a while, like on an anniversary, I'll post something.
Sorry.
It's like, well, no, I don't post about it all that often. And that's a really good story that I would love for the podcast to hear because it's really important. So we were getting ready to go to spring break with my kids. And so I was still carrying some of like the baby weight around, I think my youngest was like 8 or 9, still like didn't have my body still. And we were going to be going to Jamaica. And my, you know what it's like with kids. Every year they need a new swimsuit because they gain 2 inches. And
just don't talk to me about sneakers, man.
I know. Well, then they get old enough and they're wearing your sneakers, which is a problem. But where was I?
Jamaica, baby weight.
So we're going to the mall to go try on swimsuits for the girls. I was like, I really need a swimsuit too. I don't have one. I have body image, and I was like, oh, I don't want to try on swimsuits with a girl, because I was always around the kids. I was like, I don't want to try on swimsuit with the girls. And I was like, wait a second, Meg, body positivity. It comes from modeling, like being comfortable. These are these like quiet moments where you can like, be okay with your body, not talk about yourself, not like fixate on stuff. And I was like, okay, you're going to try on a swimsuit in front of your girls. So they were like 8 and 10 or something like that. And so they got their swimsuits and we were at Nordstrom. And I went to go put on my swimsuit and just took off all my clothes. And I was just standing, like, not like judging and like looking at my waist, but just standing there looking at myself as I was getting ready to put on my swimsuit.
In the changing room.
In the changing room.
Wow.
And my girls are there, right there with me. And I look, and on my nipple, there's a little shadow, like next to my nipple. And I was like, I'm a photographer, so I see light and shadow. Like, I know where, like, shadows
This isn't because of where the fixture was placed.
Well, it was. It was top down.
But it meant something.
It was not on the nipple. It was just outside. It looked like a little bug bite. And I remember I went and I looked at it, and I remember my daughter, John, was like, Mommy, what is it? And I was like, I don't know. And I tried on my swimsuit and kind of like kept an eye on it for a little bit, and it was still there. So I went to my doctor, my gynecologist, and she looked at it, and she's like, I'm not too worried about it. It doesn't seem to be anything. We can send you off to imaging. I was like, okay, yeah, I'd like to do that. So she sent me to imaging, and I had a mammogram and an ultrasound, and the results came back, nothing. And I remember I went to that appointment and found out, and I called my husband, and I was crying because I could see the bump. Like, I could look at it. I was like, what do you mean you don't see anything on the ultrasound? What do you mean you don't see anything? And I cried. He's like, you should be celebrating. Right. I was like, I'm looking at a bump, and there's no. So I sat with it a little bit longer, and it didn't go away. So this is over the.
You must be 187 in your soul. I mean,
know, right?
Like just sage wisdom
right?
just pouring out of you often.
No, well, only around 18-year-olds.
Okay.
And so I went back to my doctor and I was like, it's still there. And she's like, well, it's kind of outside my realm. Let me send you to a breast surgeon. And someone who like really specialized. This is my gynecologist, OB. And she's like, let me send you to a breast specialist. And so I went to breast specialist. And she did. She looked at it. She's like, yeah. She's like, it doesn't seem to be anything. But she could tell I was concerned. And she's like, well, we could biopsy it if you want. And I was like, yeah, I want to biopsy it. And so she biopsied it.
Pull out a piece internally or externally or a combination.
Well, I had 2 surgeries. So I think this was just like they did a little slice and took some.
Okay.
No. Sorry, she took all of. She took
the whole thing.
Yeah, it was
smaller than a pinky fingernail.
Smaller than like half the size of a Tic Tac, like maybe.
Okay.
Just like a regular old mosquito bite. And so she took it, and it came back as cancer. So I had 3 doctors, my first doctor, the radiologist, and then this other doctor, all like dismissed me.
I'm not worried about it.
But it was breast cancer that it was metastatic breast cancer when I was writing in my essays that had come back. So I was hyper vigilant and really like just concerned about breast cancer. It was not something, and it was like, I mean, it was awful. It was horrible. The year my mom was dying and my dad was breaking down, it was just really traumatic. So anyway, it came back as breast cancer, and I remember, oh my God, I'm so sorry. These
doctors that weren't worried about it.
Yeah. But they all like I pushed, and when I look, the reason why I want to say this is because if I had not had my mom who had died of breast cancer, I would have been like, oh, I'm fine. They would have given me that reassurance.
Dude, 3 doctors told me I'm good.
Yeah, 3 doctors.
Let's go to Jamaica.
So that also sowed a lot of distrust in the medical system for me, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But also there were a couple of things that were going on at the time that like were kind of like some weird flags. I was sweating at night a lot, and
like visible on the sheets when you get out of bed.
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Like, kind of drenched, and then my body odor smelled not like me. Because I don't like, who's that? But it was me. Like
I told you to quit coming in here.
And those were 2 things that now in hindsight, they went away after I had my breast cancer removed.
No.
And so those are 2 things that have always been kind of.
And is it known that those are symptoms?
No. Well, it is known that some people and some animals can smell some diseases. There are some people who can smell Parkinson's. There's dogs who can smell tumors, that sort of stuff. So I think I've always just been I noticed I've just noticed little things and seem to notice tipping points and little like when things are just kind of like, but anyway.
Wow.
I had that initial, and then I had another surgery where they had to check for the margins. I didn't need chemo.
Check for the how
so
big?
When they take out a tumor, like she took it out, she didn't know it was cancer, so she just took it out. But they have to go in and make sure that no cancer cells were left where the like.
This is a separate procedure than the removal of the bite.
Yeah,
because there was more in there.
No, they had to make sure there wasn't any more in there.
Okay.
She had caught all of it. So I have this little pie piece taken out of my nipple.
Okay.
And it's just like a little, not too deformed, fortunately. So that...
For all the nude posing that you have since done.
Yeah. Well, that's my next story. So as I'm getting ready to like start all these procedures, I also had a lympectomy where they took a couple lymph nodes out. And I didn't quite know if I was going to lose my hair. It was in that early stages. I didn't know if I was going to have chemo. And I remember I was driving with my husband, and I was thinking about losing my hair and maybe losing my boobs or having mastectomy. And I was like, I should go do some boudoir before my body gets deformed. And his head whipped around. He's like, would you really?
What is that?
Like naked pictures or lingerie.
Boudoir?
Boudoir.
Okay.
It's French. Boudoir photos. I didn't get completely naked. I just wore, like lingerie. But he whipped it. He was like, would you really? And I was like, oh, I guess I have to.
Can't put that toothpaste back in the tube.
No. And so before I started all that treatment, my co-photographer at the time, when I had started, she had a photography business, and one of her specialties is boudoir. So I worked with her and made a little boudoir. So once I got breast cancer, rather than doing all the things I always thought I would do, I started doing all the things I never thought I would do. And so I did the boudoir session. session, I ziplined across.
I don't remember seeing you post those pictures.
Yeah, I didn't post those pictures.
Not yet.
They're pretty. I mean, they're not super risky. But it makes my husband happy, which is good. But I ended up the next year. We were on a shoot out. We followed some geologists out to Colorado, researchers, like field camp, and we were covering the mountain Colorado.
Where?
Near the Royal Gorge.
Okay.
Where was it? Blue Mountain. I forget, where were we? It was near the Royal Gorge.
Is that the southeastern part of the state?
Like
Sand dunes, Colorado Springs. Yeah,
I think a little bit farther west, maybe. So it was a team, me with 6 guys, which is what a lot of my photography work life is like, me and a bunch of dudes. But we were there, and Tim, Andy, Andrew, Justin, me, Trevor, 6 of us total. And Andy was my photography partner. He and I both were not interested in ziplining across the Royal Gorge, but everyone else was. And it was just like, I'm going to do all the things that I never thought I would do. And so I ziplined across.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah. And that was a bit, I would never have done it if I'd not been with I never would have done it with my friends. I never would have done it with my family. I only did it with my coworkers because we were always we're getting up early. We're going on adventures. We're climbing on rooftops. So it was just like part of the job.
Sure.
And it was
parkour.
It was a lot of fun until I was like going across, and I'm coming to the end, and I'm like, nobody told me how this ends. Like, how does it end?
Right. Hopefully not with you.
Right. No, you just hit a big spring and you kind of bounce. But as I was coming in, I was like, I have no idea what to expect. What the fuck was I thinking? Who just zip lines across a canyon without like asking, like.
I jumped out of a plane in a very similar fashion.
Did you?
Not very far from there, just a little bit north, and there was a group going, and it was $200, and I was like, I can't because I don't have any money. And the place the restaurant I was working at the time, 2 brand new owners that came together and sort of partnered, and one was like specializing in the bar, and the other was more hotel operations, and one thought that this was a partnership, and the other was like waiting for the other guy to fuck up so he could like usher him out and it could be his. And so he came to me one night and he was like, I need you to not come in for your bartending shift tomorrow. And I was like, dude, like, I thought we were pretty clear, like how poor I am. Like I can't not. And he's like, and he took his checkbook out and wrote me a check for $200 and says, don't come in tomorrow. Like he wanted Friday dinner service to tank. And I'm like, I guess I'm going to go jump out of a plane. And then it was like, the plane wasn't there. And then the pilot wasn't there. And then,
warning sign.
Yeah. And then we finally, it's 4 people. There's 4 of us, but we got to go in 2s. Like they're going to go on one run with the first and so I end up being first, and it's tandem. You're attached at the hips and the shoulders, and the door is just a black tarp that they like roll up and fasten, and you're it's 9,000 feet, so the whole ride up, I'm basically in this dude's lap. We're fastened, but we're not tight. And then when we get to 9,000, he tightens everything up and scoots his butt to the edge of this. And so I am literally dangling. And I just was like, this is what crazy feels like. Like, I hope it goes away here in a minute. And he'd coached, here's what you have to do. We both have a cord and we both have an altimeter, and, do this with your arms and legs. And he jumped, and I tried for what felt like an eternity to get air in my lungs so that I could scream, because I immediately,
Oh, really?
It's like mountains, plane, mountains, plane's a little farther, mountains, plane. And I was, and he's like, and we hit the spot, and he's like, pull. And I've got air, and I'm screaming. He's like, pull. And probably said it a third time. He was like, jeez, and did it himself.
Did yours?
Well, whichever one, it didn't matter. But so then, like, we did some steering and then and landed, and the other 2 that were going to go up next were at the field in a van, and like somebody took a pic. There was a great picture of me, like the veins in my head, and and I turned to my tandem guy, and I was like, how'd I do? And he's like, you did one thing, and that was immediately grab my ass. Both hands, and like until I was showing you, that's all you did. And you screamed a little bit. And I was like, yeah, that was kind of terrifying. Like, I can't fucking believe that. She's like, yeah, what? Okay, here we go. Anyway. But
Just not
yeah,
fully thinking through the whole thing until
I got a piece of paper that says I did it.
right.
That's so okay. So you're in Colorado and doing that with your photography people. You've done your boudoir thing. You're now cancer free.
I am. Yeah, I hit
my when that story's taking place.
Was that? Yes, that was
Okay.
after.
Okay. Man, that that story is wild. The one that you read. Thank you for doing that. How many times did you go back to it for editing?
I worked on it for 2 years.
Okay. It reads like, has it been published anywhere besides
Just
that
on
blog?
that blog, yeah.
I mean, it reads like out of, the New Yorker.
It's a really, and that's why I'm always like, let me read my essay, because it's really
It's
good.
great.
It's really
and you do a good job reading it.
The woman who I wrote for, she was a really good editor, and I had just read Stephen King's Kill Your Darlings, or whatever it is. So I was able to, there was a lot of noise and there was a lot of muck, and she just cut. Like, I remember she sent it back and she just cut this, and all of a sudden it just appeared as this amazing essay. So I have built a lot of trust for having a really good editor. Like, if I were to ever write a book, I just know that that'll be an important part of the process, because I just want to put
Have you read Writing Down the Bones,
yes,
Stephen King?
Yes.
Oh my God, it's like porn for me.
I know, right?
I'm like, and then what? God, it's so good. I have made more drunk Instagram purchases than I care to admit. T-shirts, and it's like before I did one, I had more T-shirts than drawer space. And so one of the first ones I bought, I can't believe I haven't got rid of it yet. I've only had it for a couple of years, but it says write drunk, edit sober.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's fucking. And then I got it, and every time it was clean, I was like, yeah, I'm wearing that shirt. And then I was like, wait a minute. If you've ever done that, when you go to your piece to edit it sober, the only thing I want to do is go back to the previous night or whatever when I wrote drunk and punch that guy in the teeth and then kick him in the ribs, because it is awful.
Garbage, right?
It's just trash. I mean, it's like...
that's why you need to write tipsy. You need to write tipsy, not drunk.
I don't know, but, what's way truer than that stupid shirt is the writing is easy. The editing is where it's hard.
Well, I think I spend a lot of time in the editing process and less time because when I do write, I will just write a sentence,
and which is
50
not
times.
Which is not to say there are times when writer's block is real. Whether it's okay, I'm going to start a new piece. But what? Or you're in a piece and you're like, I keep it moving. And you're like, but I don't know what happens next. Maybe that is because you need to have a good outline and a plan before you start. But it can also just flood out of you. I remember in a number of spots, I've for good stretches set 3:30 alarms, and I'm in the chair at 4, and I write till 6 and then start the day. And it can, I remember being like, 2 hours I should, and then I transitioned to word count, and it's like I'm not coming up until I've got 2,000 words down. And there are days when that's a struggle, and there are days when it's like, damn, I wrote 3,500 words and didn't even get a second cup of coffee. But very powerful piece.
My big problem with that piece now is that I want to write the other side of that.
And for why is that a problem?
What?
Why is that a problem?
Well, for the longest time, I didn't think the story was there yet. But having lost my father, a lot's happened in the last probably year and a half that I feel like not just the chapter's over, but like I'm on a new book. And I feel like that story can be told. And then just the time it takes, like, I don't know when I would ever. And this sort of like, how do you like, because it's got like such cadence, and it's got that language, and it's got that rhythm, and do I like try to carry that over into another piece if it's like, and then it's really hard to recreate that because I'm in a completely different space and like the story's different.
The voice is very clear and mysterious at the same time. Like it was almost like not Samuel L. Jackson, but like a famous person was reading it, and I think the cadence contributes to that, and sort of that return to the age 32. Which when I was listening, I was like, was he really saying that? Like,
well,
was he really 32 as a magical?
Well, I worked on that for 2 years, and by the time I was done, I was like, did he really say that? Or was that just like something that I just like created?
Dreamt up, yeah.
And I just like, I was starting to like doubt myself, and then like, I don't know, it was 2 months after I wrote that. My sister was in town. We went to India Palace to go eat some buffet, and one of her best friends from high school was there, and she hadn't seen him in years. So he came and sat with us, and we were talking about my dad. He's like, I remember your dad told me, if you know what you want to do by age 32, you're going to be all right. And I was like, oh my God.
Verification.
Can you record that?
Yeah. Wow.
No, but he taught at UMKC, and
Your dad did?
Yeah, and when I was in high school, he started the EMBA. He was kind of like the lead driver of the EMBA program, the executive MBA program there.
Oh, wow.
They hadn't had it before, so he was working with like 30-year-olds who were like trying to figure out their life. So I think that's why that was kind of like a thing that he said.
The other piece is...
Doesn't 32 sound so young now?
Well, yeah, but I could have gone all episode without you saying that. But the other piece is what he went through. Oh. I mean, by this point, we're all very well aware that for most of our existence as a nation, or whatever cluster you want to assign to us, that we have just mental health, but that is a very real thing. And if you spend 90 plus, whatever number % of your life with quality mental health, and then that sort of like swings into the picture, like, you want to keep that shit away like a robber in the middle of the night. Like, no, not that. Like, give me, just for an easy example, give me a disease, that I got to get cut open for and go through things and be in debt because of all that, but not that. That terrifies me. And I pained for him, hearing that, I didn't know him but whew.
It was really, really incredibly tough. 'Cause he was so far into his depression that my mom's cancer came back about the time. I think that they maybe knew about it before they told people, because my sister was getting married, and I think my dad was kind of unraveling and had started taking some medication to deal with the anxiety, which like caused him to go in a tailspin, is kind of what I pieced together. But by that, so my mom, I think it was September when we found out it came back, it was like when the recession was happening, and he didn't...
Meaning like 08-ish?
Yeah, 08.
Okay.
And he didn't think my mom should do any of her treatment because he didn't think they had money, because he thought the banks were lying. He didn't think planes were flying. He was paranoid. He was delusional. He couldn't even, I brought her flowers, and we argued for 3 hours about how I could afford to give my mom flowers because the whole world, so he was lost. It was paranoid and delusional. And so my mom's slowly dying of cancer. And
God damn.
and they'd been married for many, many years, and he made her last year a living hell, really. Like, he, like, didn't ever want her to leave the house. She shouldn't go out and have coffee because they can't afford it. Like, it was just a really, really, and we're trying to get him help, and
He's just off on reality.
yeah. And well, and then he was like, he was in bed catatonic for weeks. He was like just wasting away, not eating.
Back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
in hindsight, he never got better.
But he was around for another 10.
Yeah, I think it was the onset of Alzheimer's,
Okay.
exacerbated by like some anxiety and depression. And he was going to get like a knee replacement. There was a little bit of like right after she passed away, didn't pass his pre-op exam. Because he'd had a minor heart attack and had to have 2 stents. Jesus. And then had the 2 stents, and then he just never returned. He became a hermit. He lived in his house till 2016, so
okay.
8 years. And his house, like, I was caring for him. He never called for birthdays, never called for Mother's Day, didn't call me when I had cancer, like, was just like, just completely just locked up in his house.
But around.
I mean, he was feeding himself. He was no longer working. He wasn't doing anything. He was just sitting around his house, reading newspapers, watching sports, whatever. And that went on.
And not interacting with your sister either.
No, she lives in Minneapolis.
Yeah, right, but
yeah.
I mean.
No phone calls. Like, it took like, early on, we thought it was depression. And then once the depression had kind of passed, we thought it was, then you like start holding them, like, my dad doesn't love me. He's not calling, why doesn't he call me on my birthday? Like, why didn't he call me to see how my, like, cancer went? So there's a really long period where I'm dealing with a lot of the.
That's picture day was today for him and tomorrow for her. So that's last year's. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. So he, never got well, and I was his house started falling apart, like
literally,
yeah, like his washer stopped, or a dishwasher, then at some point and finally it was 2016, and he was still driving the grocery store. He lived at 63rd Mission and would go to Prairie Village, so it was just a straight shot, and was still kind of feeding himself. Do you remember Gretchen Gradinger? She was in my class. We went to elementary school. We were really, 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 really good friends growing up. And this is going to be a little sad. About this time, her sister lived in Portland and was married to a guy named Brian. And he was a big cyclist. They were big outdoorsy, Portland, diehard, whatever. And they had met. They had a daughter who was like 2 or 3. They'd met at a park near their house to have like a picnic dinner. And he'd ridden his bike to the park, and she and her daughter had taken their car. They had their picnic, and they were heading home. And her husband left on his bicycle first, and she packed up and went. And he was going through an intersection when a 90-year-old ran a red light and hit him, and he became a quadriplegic.
Damn.
And I mean, it just like ripped their life. You know, they're trying to like. So they spent a year trying to figure out life, and kind of I'd hear about the story. It was really tragic. And then it's going to get really darker. He was really resentful of his life and was really struggling, I think, dealing with being a quadriplegic because he'd been so active. And his parents came to stay with them. Hani was the sister, and she was off doing something. And he told his dad he was going for a walk and drove himself right off of a pier in his wheelchair and committed suicide.
Where?
In Portland.
Oh, okay.
In Portland. Okay. And I found that out, and all of a sudden, I just like all this, like, I can't, maybe it was after, I can't remember if it was before he committed suicide or right after the accident, but whatever it was, I was like, my dad could be that person. Like, he couldn't figure out how to make a phone call. I was like, you know, they talk about personal liberty, and like everybody like has a right to make, you know, when he was dealing with all this, like at what point do I make him do something? He has his own free will. He's living his own life, even though, but at that point it became very, very clear that he was a threat to other people. Like,
Your dad?
Well, getting behind the wheel.
Yeah,
driving.
I was like, what?
Yeah, like getting behind the wheel. Like I knew his decision making wasn't quick enough, and it was just
He's
a
going to
matter of
hen house
time.
in the village.
Yeah, hen house
My
in the village.
my second job
A hen
was
house in the village.
no,
Oh.
it was
Corn.
Safeway
Oh,
back then.
Safeway. Oh,
But I
yeah.
worked, you know where Chill is? It's a frozen yogurt place across the
No.
street. It was TCBY
Oh, yeah,
forever.
yeah.
I worked there.
I worked at Wade's for 5 years.
Wow.
I know.
Old people burning heaters, eating toast. That's crazy. But right, right around the time I started working there, Wade's and then Mission Road, and where you go up into Mission Hills and Tomahawk, and there was a boy on his bike and at the light, and he'd stopped, and there was a car came up and stopped also, and went to make a right turn as he went to cross, and they just didn't see him. And I mean, he was like, I don't know, 10, 11, and killed him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was just like I had never to that point in my life like even heard of such a, I feel like, anyway, it was kind of like right here in Prairie Village, a boy, because I'm also a boy who cruises around
on your bicycle
in
anytime.
Prairie Village. My mom was on 69th Terrace. I went to 6 grade schools.
Oh my God.
And my final 6th grade, I was at Prairie. And it was just kind of like, oh shit, man, like that's not just on
something that happens out there
on
in
the
world.
news and in the movies. It's real people, So you say driving to, I immediately I can see all the places, and I'm like, oh, should he be driving? But so now you realize it's not safe for him to do that, and then.
So I told him he needed to move. Like we knew his father had Alzheimer's, so we knew. And at that point, it was becoming clear it was dementia and not depression. Like there were memory issues, and there was like just an inability to. I mean, he was a professor, and he like
sharp guy, smart people.
Like
shit.
in the Navy, he was an officer. Like he was a smart dude, and he just wasn't able to problem solve. And I had been trying to talk him into moving somewhere where like they can feed him and that kind of stuff, and he wanted nothing to do with it. Like, yeah, he would at some point I hired a plumber to come fix something, and like he wouldn't even let the plumber in the house.
Damn.
Like he blocked the door.
This is like 2018-ish?
No, this would have been like 2011
20. Okay. So how, I mean, like what, go ahead.
Oh, well, 2008 he had a nervous breakdown.
Yep.
And then at some point for a long time we thought it was depression.
Yep.
And then at some point it was Alzheimer. And at some point there was this fucky middle part where it was part dementia, part depression and anxiety, like paralyzing.
But I mean,
anxiety.
So what was the last 10 years of his life?
So 2016 was when that accident happened, and I was like, at this point,
yes,
like, I'm no longer going to defer to what he thinks he wants for his life. I'm now the grown up, and so I told
putting
him,
yourself in front of the firing squad.
Yeah, and I told him, I was like, you need to move. You're unsafe. If you don't agree to go, I'm going to go to a judge and ask for guardianship. And
guns blazing.
Yeah, and I was just very direct, and he's like, okay, I'll move. And I was like, I mean, I'd spent years like trying to convince him, and it was like as soon as I said I was going to go in front of a judge,
verbally,
yeah,
you'd brought it up before.
Oh yeah,
okay,
yeah.
not just thinking about it. Okay,
years tried to talk him into it,
and he was like, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, because I thought he needed socialization and neighbors and like someone to clean, fix the dish, like all that stuff had been falling apart. So he
let
just
the
needed,
plumber in, please. He's here.
So we moved him to Village Shalom,
okay,
where that is, in independent living in 2016, and he stayed there until he moved to assisted living a couple years ago.
Okay.
Went to assisted living and then to memory care, where he was for 6 months, and then he died.
Okay.
And for the past, I'd say, once I realized it was dementia, I no longer when it seemed like it was depression, I could let like 3, 4, 5 weeks go by, living my life, taking care of my kids, not necessarily going to visit him. But as it became dementia, I was more of a caregiver. So by the time he moved to Village Sloan, I'd go spend all day, either Saturday or Sunday all day with him, and then try to go on weeknight, once or twice to go visit him. So from 2016 until he passed away in June, I was spending probably 15 hours a week with him, and it was dementious.
Dude.
It's just
Dude.
it's
Staff.
What's that?
The staff and the facility.
Oh, they were amazing.
Okay.
They were amazing.
You never were at odds with anybody. Okay.
No. And that's why, we had heard really great things about
Sure.
Village Sloan, and it was really, and they have and the reason why we picked it is because we knew he was going to need memory care. And it had the stage, so we wouldn't have to move him from one facility to the next. They could do it all in-house. And so they even had a woman. So his house was falling apart. There was lots of mold. So we just basically, it's one of those ranch houses in Reinhardt Estates that got torn down for like a $1.5 million or whatever joke. I tried so hard for that not to happen. Tried so hard.
How? What do you do?
Ask around, trying to sell it to someone who wanted to fix it and not tear it down.
And then instead of just putting it on the market for whoever, but that's what you ended up.
So I spent about a year trying to do that. And actually it was, so 2016 when we moved him, and 2017 is when I got breast cancer. So that entire year, I talked to different people, and someone would almost buy it, and then they the price wasn't cheap enough for them to put all the work in. So there were 3 or 4 different friends of friends who wanted to buy it because it's a coveted area. And where was I going with the story?
It ended up getting.
Oh yeah, so we went away to spring break. And someone had told me you should take this amount, no less than this amount. So that was kind of like a bar that I hit. We came back from spring break it was the same week I found out I had breast cancer. And there was an offer from one of the developers for exactly the amount that I shouldn't take less for. And it was nothing, no strings attached, no, I didn't have to, they were going to tear it down so they could tear everything down with it. So I didn't have to empty his house out of stuff. And I was
wait,
cancer,
what?
I'm done.
You didn't have to go deal with all of his belongings?
Well, I dealt with what I wanted to keep.
And you left the rest there?
I left, and they just tore it down.
Threw it in
it was all covered in mold.
1-800-GOT-JUNK?
No, I think it's just
dumpster.
Bulldozer.
Oh,
because they tore down the house
with stuff in it.
Oh, I don't know if that's actually how they did it. That's how I assume they did it.
Right.
And so we salvaged some stuff, but most of it was just covered in mold.
Yikes.
That mold's evil, and I didn't want any of that. So we donated what we could, kept what we really wanted,
sure.
And the rest, which actually makes downsizing the house a lot easier because then you don't have to deal with all of the stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, we were. I don't remember messaging. Mm-hmm. I don't know what. I must have seen a post of yours and been like, I gotta see if I can get Meg, and you were like, my busy season's around the corner, so let's circle back at X date, and then I saw your post and I was like, fuck, and but I bring that up because I think that you wrote my daddy. Mm-hmm. And it struck me then, and now listening to what the last almost 15 years of his life was like, not only for him but for all of you and your people, it sounds like forgiveness and mercy and positive,
yes. But in my essay where I talk about, I read and I wrote
yes.
in the words. I joined writing group, the library writing group. The Kate Gase Walton, the woman who I wrote it for, I met her actually. Guy Raz, Guy Raz. He was on All Things Considered. He was one of and he had a writing competition. I think it was quarterly, and it was 3-minute fiction. It was 250 words or less. They'd give you a prompt. You'd have a week. And you write it, you'd submit it, and then they'd have the winner. And so I was just looking for just something to get me I needed something to write, and I just needed an engine. And so I started doing those, and there was a Facebook page for 3-minute fiction where everybody'd write. And this would have been probably 2012, 2011.
When Facebook was still cool.
Yeah. And it's a bunch of writers like on a Facebook. So it was really funny and really entertaining. Lots of people like doing lots of gesturing with words and all that kind of stuff. But Kate had seen like the stuff that I'd written, and that's how she reached out to me. She's like, "What do you do? We write about it." And so I hadn't met her when she did that. But anyway, in my writing, all these little things, I didn't realize it at the time, but I kept writing these really horrific male characters. But ones that like you could feel you knew why they were, so you had sympathy for them. So it was like, I realize now that I was like trying to figure out a way to like forgive my dad for what he had done through my writing, through these sort of characters, and it really was actually
done is like kind of an air quotey kind of thing, right? He was never like maliciously right.
But it allowed me to really like, if I could forgive that character that I had created in my writing, then I could figure out how to like forgive him. Like if I was able to create this sort of scenario where they were more awful and I could still find forgiveness, it allowed me to help find my forgiveness.
And forgiveness also in air quotes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he doesn't.
At peace. Yeah. No, there was no maliciousness. But for a while, like there was this sort of like,
I mean, when you said it made the last year of your mom's life a living hell.
That was
I think
that was it. I think
rough.
that was the hard part. To really like just like you think anybody who's dying of cancer should just be like surrounded in love and kindness and
harps and angels and chocolate and whatever.
And she didn't really have any of that. I did my best, but you can only do so much when you have 3 young children and you're trying to like navigate all that.
Right. I hate to interrupt this fantastic flow, but I have got to pee. So let's take 5.
Okay, sounds good.
What did you say? You have a funny story about what?
Oh, about habit. My husband tells, he learned it in his MBA program. There's a story about a woman who was teaching her daughter how to make a Christmas ham or something like that, and she's like, put it in the pot, and you cut off the side of the ham, and you put it in the oven, and girl's like, why you cut off this? And apparently grandma's oven was really small and the ham wouldn't fit in the oven, and she always cut off the side so the ham would fit in the oven, and the daughter just learned that you cut off the edge of the ham. It didn't matter, like it wasn't.
She had a bigger oven probably.
Just those habits we just keep doing.
Right. Wow. Man. Heavy stuff. I mean.
So I have another story.
I mean, I don't have kids or a husband to get home to, so the time is
I'm okay.
You do all the things that you want to do, and I'm gonna be here, you know.
Well, it's the moment. It's how my father passed away.
Okay.
Or the week that my father passed away. So 15 years. My sister's rarely home. Comes home, so I'm the only like.
But are you guys close?
We're close. Yeah.
Okay.
She's just busy. And.
Also kids?
One daughter.
Okay.
And so I've been his only source of anything for a long time. So I got accepted in the program in the PhD program in February. And one of the things that I always tell my students, usually on the first day of class, is that my biggest regret in college was not doing study abroad. And in trying to convince them to do study abroad. And it's always been a regret, and I just like, it's the only real regret I have in life. That's it. And so as soon as I got to be a student, I was like, I'm a PhD student. I was like, I should do study abroad. And looked up, and there was a professor that I had gone to Tanzania with on a research trip. So I knew her. She's an English professor, and she had a trip going to Cuba in May, and it was a study abroad trip, and I was like, I'm going to go to Cuba. I'd been to Cuba once before, really wanted to go back. I knew Jeff was not going to go with me. And I remember when I was doing the calculus, I should back up a little bit. My father was doing okay until Thanksgiving hit, and then I think got some sort of viral and just like tanked. And that's how he ended up in memory care. And it seemed like he was going to pass away around New Year's at that point.
This is like 13 months ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
11 months ago.
11. I'm never good at math.
11 months ago. And he, I didn't think he was going to make it to New Year's. Definitely didn't think he was going to make it to his birthday, which was in March. And hospice got called in. He started losing lots and lots of weight, stopped eating, stopped talking, all that sort of stuff. And so I was like, I'm gonna do study abroad. Like, he's not gonna be here. It's gonna be done. We had hospice come in. We thought it was gonna be. I didn't think it would be a problem. And if he lived, what are the chances that he would die when I'm in Cuba? And so I went ahead, signed up, put down my deposit, and I went. It was mid-May. Well, my father did terrible, was on like death's door, and then all of a sudden started eating again and started putting on weight and started like doing all these things. He was like not, he wasn't like suddenly cognitively there, but like health wise, he was coming back, and people can live for years like in the semi like non-existent, as long as they're eating and not getting sick, they're fine. And so as the spring wore on, I was like, well, he's not gonna pass away while I'm in Cuba. That's not going to happen. And so I'm a photographer. End of the semester is commencement. I was supposed to shoot commencement on a Sunday and then leave for Cuba at like 5 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. And 2 weeks before this happened, I got a call from Village Shalom that my father had tested positive for COVID. This was the day that they announced that they were lifting the nationwide pandemic. Like, the day, like literally, like I heard that news and then got the call. He wasn't sick, that someone else had like been sick and they were testing everyone, and he tested positive. And since I was like going on study abroad and I was taking a class and like I was just doing everything, I was like, I can't get COVID right now. So I didn't see him for the 2 weeks leading up to when I was going to leave for Cuba.
Yeah, because that's the window, right?
Yeah,
2 weeks.
That's the window. Except for 2 days before I was supposed to leave, the hospice nurse called and said that he's really starting to deteriorate. It looks like he's going to pass away when you're gone. You need to be ready for him to pass away when he's gone. You need to be at peace with leaving him if that's what you choose to do.
Wow. Okay,
and,
hospice.
And was just really frank with me and just told me I needed to do everything that I needed.
There's value in that, right?
Yeah.
Frankness?
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. I was really thankful for it. That's what I needed because it allowed me to make a decision, because I knew once I went to, like in Cuba, you don't have phones, you barely have internet. Yeah, well, they have phones, but we could only WhatsApp. I could only WhatsApp with my sister and my husband.
Okay.
And you only have Wi-Fi, like if you're at a fancy hotel, and then some of like, you stay in homes instead of hotels, people's homes. And so some people have Wi-Fi, but they only turn it on when the guests are there. And so it's like, it's really hard to communicate, and you're pretty much cut off from the rest of the world. There's not a lot,
Wow.
News. Things are not good in Cuba right now.
It could be different, but it's that way intentionally.
It's that way because they're all the above.
Okay.
All the above.
Like they border the Dominican, right?
Yes.
And you can go to the Dominican and have Wi-Fi and
I think the government has cut off the community, because you can't use credit card. You have to take all cash when you go to Cuba. You can't have any plastic. So you've got to like really plan for emergencies and all that kind of, like, you have to bring all of your toiletries. There's not a lot of stuff. But the pandemic really hit Cuba pretty hard. A lot of people aren't eating meat. Like one of the people we met, he was in a band, but he had to like shoot rabbits during the pandemic to feed his son. There's not a lot of, like, all the phones that the people had, like the people that we know, the teenagers, they've been brought in by tourists who've come and like given them to someone who's handed them out. Like you can't go buy a phone in Cuba. Like they just don't have that. They don't. Major gasoline shortages.
Really?
The only people who were really getting gasoline were tourists.
It's like one of the many, like, especially imagery things that Cuba is like, all the old cars.
Yeah. I mean, those are tourists. So there's gasoline, but it's so expensive that only tourists can afford it.
All of those cars that you see in pictures are just tourists?
Those are people who do that for tourists.
Okay.
I mean, some people use them for transportation, but most of the fancy bright colored ones, convertible ones, that's all like part of the tourist industry. So they're people own them, and then they take people around for rides. That's how they like can make money.
Okay.
Man. Anyway, it's really not good in Cuba, including
So
the
let's
communication.
go study abroad there.
Yeah. Well, it's actually really good. I had 2 nights. I went and spent like all night with him. The 2 nights before commencement, he was like on the back end of his quarantine, and I was like, I'll just let the chips fall if I get COVID. And I went.
So you threw the 2-week thing out the window.
Well, I had not been around for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So he was supposed to end his quarantine the day that I was leaving. So I was there 2 days before he was supposed
So it was safe-ish. It was close.
Safe-ish.
Yeah.
And I, for the most part, wore a mask. He was not, because he was dying. And at that point, you could tell that he could sense that I was there, but there was no language. There was no eye contact.
You could tell that he could sense that I was
there.
there.
He could hold my hand. If I spoke, he would squeeze my hand when I spoke. Wow. So there's a little bit of communication. But I sat bedside. We listened to music. I talked to him. I told him what the hospice nurse. I was like complete. So I was able to do everything that I felt like I could possibly need to do while I was still with them.
What kind of music did you put on? Do you remember?
Classical.
Okay.
Classical.
And
Creedence Clearwater Revival and a lot of 70s. It was kind of.
Did you feel at any point during that hang? Did you feel passages or portions or energy from that piece springing in and out and around you? The written one that you read.
Sorry?
So you're hanging with your dad and he's holding your hand. You can tell that you're there. You're listening to music and all this stuff. Did any energy or passages from that piece that you wrote, that you read, was that kind of like...
Oh, it's always in there.
Okay. No, I mean, but in that moment, I would imagine that a lot of sentiments that live in that piece were also...
For sure. Oh, yeah, for sure. So I said goodbye. And then I went and I shot commencement and then hopped on a plane to Cuba, knowing that would happen, and had talked to everyone and their dog about, this is what we're going to do if something happens, when it happens. And so I was 3 days into my Cuba trip, and we happened to be at the National Hotel of Cuba. It's famous place for Castro and what's his name?
Che Guevara.
Yeah, and who else? Someone else. Anyway, so we're getting this nice little lecture in this grand hotel, and they had Wi-Fi because it was a very nice hotel. And we're getting this lesson on, the Cuban Missile Crisis and everything that was happening in the 60s. And I got a text from my sister that the hospice nurse said that he was molting, and
what does that
that's
mean?
When your color, you start turning purple, and lots of it's
blood's not flowing and
it's
so forth.
It's an imminent sign of death. It's an imminent sign of death, usually within 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours. So I found that out, and I was like, okay, it's going to be happening in the next day or so. And obviously I started crying in the middle of the lecture around all these students, and the students, there were 3 KU students, PhD students, and then 9 students who were from Donnelly College in KCK. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. I did social work in KCK for 3 years, and I would either go out in the community with kids, go to their homes, or go to their schools.
So you're familiar with all that area?
All of it.
So you probably know the types of kids who grew up in that area. So there was a teacher at Donnelly College who knew this professor at KU, and she was an English teacher, and she basically had all these Henry Block scholars that were coming through Donnelly. That's where you get a full ride. You start out at Donnelly, and then you end up at UMKC with a 4-year completely paid. And so she has all these, and they're really bright students. There were 9 of them. 2 were undocumented families. 2 were refugees. 1, Honduras, Kenya, Tibet, Laos, Mexico. Well, that one was born here. I forgot what the other ones. Anyway, so really bright students who are really they're Block scholars, so they've shown that they have a lot of motivation. So really, just kind of my favorite kind of student.
Yeah.
They've been through adversity. They know perspective. They have these different perspectives, just the best.
So a lot of times, I've never taught, but I've been in a lot of different settings, and it seems like a lot of times those kids by the time they're in your presence and they're jazzed about their education,
Oh yeah.
right? So
I
then
have it.
you're like, I can't fail. I gotta fucking bring A+ game every day. You know what I'm saying?
And I'll get into that. So those are the 9 students, and the 2 other PhD students are English, and I'm educational science. So they were roommates, and then I was with all the undergraduates when we were staying in these rooms. And the girl that I was partnered with, because you stay in people's houses, and the girl who I was partnered with was a Donnelly student. She's 19. She's the one from Laos. I think she was born here, but her parents were refugees who like escaped through the jungle and up the river, and like, you know, those kind of stories.
Yeah.
But I think the instructors placed her with me because her dad was in the ICU, actively dying of diabetes complication.
Okay.
So she was my roommate. And we hit it off, and she like follows me around with a piece of paper and that's an amazing thing. Oh, I need to write that. And she's just like this amazing little,
that's awesome.
who I want my like self to be when I was 19.
Right.
So we really hit it off. But anyway,
that's maybe your post 55 retired photographer self.
Yes.
You never know.
Yeah. So so anyway, we find out at the hotel, and I tell everyone what's happening, and you know, so there's some, and the thing that we were doing after that was to hop in all the convertibles and drive on the Malecon, like in, you know, cherry red convertibles. And I'm like processing that and at that moment, like all 15 years worth of grief just like hit me, just like before he had died. It was just all of it just came flooding at me. So it was really, really, really intense. And we're in the convertibles, and everybody's having the best music's blaring. Everybody's like, they're all 19 writing, and I'm just like in this, like I have an out of body like memory of it, like me floating above everyone. I was like completely disassociated. It was a really surreal sort of experience. And then we went up to this thing and did a little lecture. And then we went back to they call them casa particulars. That's like a Airbnb. And so we went back there, and everybody was showering and getting ready to go out to dinner. And we had a little living area, and all the students loved to play. Like, they love music. They would just play music all the time and play Uno and sit around. And it was just a lot of fun to like hang out with 19-year-olds. So they were all hanging out, and I was showering, and I got out of the shower. And we happened to have, it was one of the only places that we did have Wi-Fi at our Casa de Particular, and there was a message from my sister that he passed.
How long between messages are we talking?
Like 3 or 4 hours.
Okay, so
and I was ready for 24, so I wasn't quite ready for that. And then like
back in the shower.
Yeah, but then you're like, I'm like in a room by myself, and like I've just found out my dad has died over WhatsApp, and I can't talk to my husband. I can't like talk to it was such a like weird moment, because you don't expect to be like here.
This is how, okay.
So I
thanks.
So I kind of like, and I was in my room by myself. I got dressed, and you know, it took probably like an hour of just like processing it, and then I walked out of my room out into the living room, and there were 4 people there. My roommate, her name's Sarai, and then a guy named Marco, a guy named Abdul, and a guy named Raphael. Was it Raphael? No, sorry, Addis. Addis is from Tibet, Kenya, and Mexico, and then Laos. And all 3 of them were refugee families. And the 3 boys had all lost their fathers when they were teenagers.
Damn.
And I walk out, and that's who is giving me my first hug. And they were there for me in a way that no one else could have ever been. Like, the quality of the way that they were with me was a way that nobody else in my life could have ever been. And we were close because we'd been traveling for a few days. A couple of them I'd had Marco I sat with on the plane on the way over there, and his father had just passed away. He had been living in Mexico. His dad was in Kansas City. He moved to come learn his dad's business, and his dad died of cancer like 9 months later, and then the pandemic hit. And so these are the stories, and then like, you know, they just have these horrific stories of how their fathers died, and I learned it in these 3 days. And so as I'm looking there, they were like, even if I were like, you were the first person, there'd be like some part of me that's worried about having to console me, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this sort of, there's the interplay in the relationship. But in this place, it was just this like, just genuine, just like being there for me in a really peaceful and not in a over thought way or over talk way. They just were there.
Which is really wild because I, at least, can envision a scenario in which those people who lost their fathers, their fathers died at a much younger age than yours did. And so then this whole...
I had gratitude. I had nothing but gratitude. Like the grief wasn't there. It was
well,
oh my God.
There are humans in the world that could have been like, you should be thankful right now. Or what?
Right.
Just not the thing that you actually needed.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Wow.
It was really, really, really incredible. And we all piled out. The sun was setting, and we all piled out on the porch. And there was this...
and it was warm.
Yeah, oh yeah. There's this smokestack next to a building off in the distance. And from our vantage point, as the sun was setting, it's just a single smokestack. The sun, like, just sat on top, like, right on top of the...
Like a tea?
Like, it was like an ice cream cone.
Oh,
so
funny.
we were all, like, laughing, and it was like, oh, look at the, and taking pictures. And it was just, like, it turned into just this... We were listening to music. And it turned out that night we ended up eating dinner, and the restaurant was at the smokestack. So there's this sort of like...
Wow.
Just this... kind of give you sort of chills.
There's so many moments in there, specifically the out of body above watching. I've had that.
Mm-hmm. And my memory now to this day is looking down on
and it's like there's so many pieces like that across the human experience that, like, at least today to now, who knows what the future will, but it's literally impossible to distill that and share it with another person so they can, because you say it was really weird or it was really wild or it was really intense or whatever, and it's not like anything else, but ultimately, like, those are just words into the ears of the listener. Like, they can never
know what
it's like you can talk about cruising around on the carpet in your sock to feet when you're a kid and shocking your sibling. And, I experienced that. Or the smell of gas being pumped, or a cookout, or, there's a lot of things that are very specific things that you can describe, and the person, I know exactly. But there are also a lot of experiences that, unless you've experienced it,
no.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, so story doesn't end there. So that happened. The next day, day after, everybody's like, "Oh, May, how are you doing?" And I'm like still kind of processing. The professor who did this is an English professor. Her specialty is writing through trauma. So I was in good hands. And so we, like, part of, like, our thing was writing in our journals every day. Like, we'd have prompts and that sort of stuff and talk about things. So the next day, I got a really bad period, and I, like, started just, like, kind of hemorrhaging. It was like...
This happened before?
Yes and no. I'm not too concerned about it. It's a really long story that
sure.
you would need you'd need a couple podcasts to cover.
Episode 2, the sequel, Meg's period.
Right. And so I was kind of struggling and, just really kind of dragging my feet.
Are you a person that gets bad cramps as well? Or?
Only in the last, like, 5 years.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But...
So you're only having to deal with massive amounts of blood loss.
Right. It was like, yeah, it was...
Kidding.
I couldn't leave the house for a while just because it was, like, every 20 minutes I'd have to, like...
Deal with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that night, in the middle of the night, I got food poisoning, and I was up.
From the fancy hotel?
I think so.
Okay.
No, from the chimney stack.
Oh, right.
Actually, no. This would have been the next dinner. Sorry, no. I know where we ate. We ate at this bar, and I don't know what it was that I ate, but other people ate similar things and didn't get sick. Shitting and puking all night long, and couldn't hold down even water. And so that second day, I was in our CASA particular just because I was, like, resting and still, I think, vomiting and doing all that. And so when you're in these CASA, there's no electricity. Electricity is around maybe, like, 20% of the time. There's no Wi-Fi. The power goes in and out.
I was going to say, is it scheduled or is it random?
It's random.
Okay.
And so that day
It's pretty creepy.
as I'm well, they're used to it. As I'm getting over the food poisoning or whatever it was, I'm laying in a dark room, without Wi-Fi and no TV and no one around me. And I'm on day 2 of processing my dad, writing. And so I just basically spent the entire day, like, just journaling. And it's this, like, when you go back, it's like hallucinatory writing. And it's just like, words and like all that kind of stuff. And the next day, I finally started getting my wits about me, put some food. We went to the next town, and we're getting off the bus, and I have my backpack, and it's cobblestone. I take one step off of the bus into a missing cobblestone hole, twist my ankle.
Oh, dude.
And then blacked out and was passed out on the road for about 10 minutes. Couldn't walk on my foot after that. So spent another day in another Casa Particular without air conditioning, Wi-Fi, or electricity, still processing. And so this whole time I'm spending thinking about my dad, thinking about stories, thinking about all the, the last 15 years.
And journaling.
So and if I had been at home, like, dealing with my dad's death, I would have been busy. I would have been working. I would have my family, and I just wouldn't have been, like, sitting with my thoughts. And so I sat with my thoughts for about 3 days and had nothing to distract me, and it was
medicinal.
Yeah,
maybe.
It was. And what's so interesting is, like, your dad's doing this for 15 years. You imagine all the ways that you wish it could have happened. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I know you're religious, but I'm not religious, but I prayed that, like, just take us all out of our misery, like, so many times. And I'd imagine, what if it happened this way, what if it happened? And never.
Is it just because of this that you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Never, ever imagine that I would be in Cuba. Like, it was
right.
But it was everything that I needed.
Sure.
Because it just, like, created this space for me to just, like, disassociate from everything and just grieve it in a natural sort of, I don't know. It was really
what you needed, but also I think I'm not trying to tell you.
No, I'm looking for words.
I think that it was what you needed as, a daughter and a sister and a wife and a mom and all those things, but also as the person, as you mentioned a little while ago, that with your sister in Minneapolis, like, your mom's been gone for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Your sister's seldom here. I mean, it's you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other thing. I mean, like, if you're just a daughter that lives nearby and occasionally visits, right, and so on and so forth, like, yeah, of course you have your grief that you need to go through, but you're also,
my identity was completely wrapped in caring for him and being his daughter and being his caregiver. Yeah, like a whole.
Hard not to put all of that in the everything happens for a reason bucket. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I don't know. I'm a hippie at heart, so when things organically unfold a way like that, and you're like,
I would not change. Like, I wasn't, like, when I think about not being there and holding his hand as he died, you hear people, oh, he's surrounded by love, holding the hand, like, and there's, like, a little bit of, like, this, like, I should have been there, but I was there for 15 years in ways, I wiped his butt. I've done, and I was okay with, like, actually doing something for myself. Yeah. Because I knew he was in good. It wasn't that I was abandoning him, and I did everything I could to hold his hand up until the very last second I was there. But I needed to, and now it was funny. I've reframed it. I have told people that, study abroad was my biggest regret. I wish I would have done it. And there was this like moment of clarity. It was like, there's a reason why I didn't do study abroad. And it was so that I would be in Cuba in May of
stepping in this missing cobblestone hole.
There's no way in hell I would have been there doing all of that. It's everything that I needed, and gives me really sense, like, I like all the closure that I could possibly want, and just enough mystery and magic and, like, this sort of, like, connection. And then to end the story, Sarai's father passed away about a month ago, and she came to my dad's funeral, and I went to her dad's funeral. And
Where?
She's in Kansas City.
And her dad passed away here?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And we've like developed this really incredible bond, and like I don't know anybody of my friends who like there are people on Facebook who I know, but none of my close friends have lost a parent anytime in the most recent future, and it's just really interesting to have someone to share that with.
Right.
In like a different sort of way.
Yeah.
And we both have, I think, played an important role in like dealing with it. And she was a daddy's girl and I was a daddy's girl, so we really kind of like bonded over that.
And what's her sibling situation?
She's one of triplets.
Okay. Oh, damn.
Yeah, and she's got a really complicated, like, her dad was like a famous musician in Laos and beloved, and they moved to the United States, and the mom had to like take care of everyone, became angry and resentful, and really didn't love her husband anymore.
Oh, wow.
And Sarai was just like her like her father.
Oh,
and
shit.
So her mother was,
see it in her.
yeah, and like I think there was some maybe minor physical, a lot of emotional abuse, a lot of like just really harsh tongue. And so I was the mom that she's always needed, and she was the family member that I needed, and we just fit each other. It was if she hadn't been there, I don't know that the experience would have been quite as
intense.
Yeah.
Fitting matchmaking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so now what level of correspondence do you have with her and the others?
So I saw her father's funeral was like 4 weeks ago, so
okay.
that was about the last time.
But I mean, do you guys
Oh yeah, we text. And she wants to come to KU, and I had to do a research project on top of going to study abroad. It's a 3-hour credit class, and so rather than do a research project, I did oral interviews of everybody on the trip, and then put together some YouTube videos where I did little themes like first gen student, or what were some of them?
Undocumented, maybe.
I didn't touch on that. Like I didn't ever want to get anybody talking about anything on camera that if Trump came into office and said like
stop.
Yeah. So I have interviewed all of them, and we've met up a couple times. So yeah, we're still kind of in touch.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Wow. You've led a fascinating life since 1994 or 3.
Yeah.
For me.
Well, there were a lot of years where it was not so fascinating there.
Well, but you put in the mundane and the routine and the standard to get to go on that ride, or have, Wow. So mom and dad are classical folks. And then I'm interested in this notion. It's hard to do this many episodes and just deal with the elements of repetitive, I only have so many original thoughts.
Right. I know.
And
I know
I'm sharing with you for the first time, and I'm like,
we do portraits, and you have the same conversation over and over and over and over and over.
So again. I'm interested in this notion of the music that your folks or whoever's rearing you are it's not. It's cool. It's special. It's nurturing, but it's also kind of like the furniture in the home. It's just there. Mm-hmm. And
go ahead.
You go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say they had their classical music, but we also did lots of like road trip. We had a 1981 Volkswagen Vanagon pop up.
Nice.
And so since they were professors, we'd do a lot of road trips in the summer, like 3-week long road trips. And so Paul Simon, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Linda Ronstadt, like Willie Nelson, like those 4 artists are just
but that's what mom and dad are putting on, right?
Yeah,
so it's just part of your existence.
Yes.
And then one day something changes and you pivot and you begin to seek out
Pixies Doolittle, Plaza.
So
the Plaza Music Store was the first CD I ever bought in 1990.
Your first album purchase was Doolittle?
CD.
Okay. Yeah.
First album purchase was
You never
Beatles.
Bought cassettes?
I did.
Okay.
Beatles.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Okay.
Beatles, Billy Joel.
Nice.
Just, your
Yeah.
typical. But those were not my musical choices. Those were the musical choices of the time.
Okay.
Of my friends and the culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pixies was the first time
Sure.
I think I sought out something that was my sound.
Okay.
That hadn't been given to me by someone else.
Sure. How about shows? First concert or first?
Billy Joel.
Oh,
Kemper.
cool. Do you remember what tour it was or what year?
Would have been 87 or 88.
So probably Innocent Man.
Yeah, probably.
Great fucking album. Great
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
album. My first, I was given a couple of pieces of vinyl as a very young person, and then I inherited a couple hodgepodge here and there. But my first, my dad and his wife and kids were living pretty close to Ward Parkway Mall, and when I would still go over there, sadly I stopped. And I, that the age at which I did that is my daughter's around the corner, and so I'm like, but I was going over there for the weekend, and I had some cash, and I wanted to make sure there was a functioning bike so that I could bike from his house to Ward Parkway and go to Musicland and whatever the other one was. And I ended up buying cassette copies of Led Zeppelin 4 and Billy Joel, Innocent Man. And at the time, this house for them was relatively new. And it was my great aunt's house, and she was still living there. And they moved in with her, and my dad's wife, sort of a career nurse, assumed the role of caregiver for her. So she had a room downstairs, and dad and stepmom had the master, and then the two girls and so bunk beds in the basement for Tiffany and I. But I got back from that bike ride, and, I was like, there was a single cassette FM AM stereo, and it's like, I need to have this in the basement alone for a while. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And my dad's acoustic guitar that he never really played. I was just like, this is, I don't know what it is, but I want
this.
Swim in this and be in this, and it was like, I think dinner time approached, and they came downstairs and like, dinner's ready. And it's like, oh, I fucking go back to life. Anyway, that's I love first shows and first albums that you, by proxy or by intention, become invested in and fall in love with outside of the stuff that your folks play in the home. So let's see here. We talked about KU. We talked about married and kids. I guess we're moving to your list, which thank you for sending me. It's always an interesting animal. Some folks are like, "That's how," and it's like, don't make too much of it. That's how. And some folks got to deliberate for a little while. Some take a very long time. Some people, it's like they've
been waiting for the opportunity.
Here, it's like, oh shit, all right. And every list is, the episode that I recorded on Saturday had 4 artists and albums I'd
never heard.
No, like the closest to anything was Rain and Blood by Slayer. And that also was maybe the mellowest. Everything else was, so it's like, try to sit with that,
Do you try to listen to people's songs before you
albums?
Do that? Yeah.
Albums.
Oh,
yeah. And most people are giving me 5, So if it's something that I know like the back of my hand, I'm probably not going to visit. I know that shit. If it's something that I can't sit with, I'm going to scan and see. Got that. You know what I'm saying? And to be honest, there's not. It's seldom is there sufficient time to really take in, 5 full records and put together notes and look up a little bit about the bands and so on and so forth. I mean, I did when I my newspaper staff buddies, when our blog, it was like, a few years, and we were selling shirts, and like ticket brokers were paying us to put their links on our page, and we had, at a good point we would have like 35,000 visits a day, and and then eventually, and I was running it, and so it was like, I've got to be 33% of the writing, but also we have a schedule, and we all have deadlines. And like, we're, don't mix business and pleasure and that kind of so it's like, don't make me be disappointed by missing your and that started to happen, and sort of the chore joy. And so anyway, I was like, this was fun, I'm gonna just do it on my own. And so the first project I did was ranking the top 25 Bob Dylan albums, and there were like 36 at the time. And I was like, this has to be, each album has to get 3 uninterrupted listens.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, that was, and I
don't know that I've ever listened to like that many albums straight through, like solid listen.
I mean, so 36 times 3. This is one of those 3:30 a.m.
Right.
And it's like 6 o'clock comes fast, and it's like, fuck, this project is taking forever. But like, self-imposed sanctions and deadlines are, sometimes the hard. Anyway, so I've always like, you don't know a record until you listen to it 3 times.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's not the world. This is not that world. So I like to take folks' lists and roll through them chronologically in the year of release.
Okay.
Which for your case puts us in 1986 with Paul Simon's Graceland. It was the 7th of 15 for him, or is the 7th of 15. 11 tracks, 43 minutes. Second time it's made a list. Surprisingly, only the second time, because the first time was not that long ago.
Oh, interesting.
And I know that record. I've never owned it, but when I put it on, I was like, I know every song on this album. Like, I have owned it for 30 years, and I don't think I've ever owned it. But Album of the Year Grammy in 1987, added to the U.S. National Recording Registry, which criteria for which is culturally, historically, or aesthetically important. 16 plus million copies sold, 50 people credited on the record itself, musician-wise.
Oh yeah, I guess there's.
It's just an amazing, magical album with so many different kinds of energy in it and around it and attached to it. How and why did it become special for you?
Yeah, Paul Simon, my parents, like.
Okay.
Yeah.
The road trip.
The road trip. But
you keep saying that. You've said that several.
This Paul Simon Kodachrome is like the soundtrack of my brain.
Okay. Wow. So intro to Paul Simon.
Through that.
Part of those 71 pop-up VW road trips.
Yeah, and we listened to Graceland over and over and over, to the point, like, when my sister did come back, and she did not come back. She'd come back every, few months, but one of the times that she came back, I wanted to play Graceland, and she asked me not to, because she had lots of very, like, distinct, intact memories with my dad around Graceland from previous years that she didn't want to introduce dying memory. Like, every time you, like, recall a memory, it changes because you bring whatever's happening in the new moment. And she was afraid of, like, altering those memories with
it's like some Inception shit, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's true. I mean, if you're a neuroscientist, you understand how it happens. So, and she's a neuroscientist, so she understands how it happens. But she just, like, couldn't, because she didn't want to, like, lose part of that.
Did you gasp at this request, or did you immediately understand it?
No, I get it.
Okay.
I get it,
Okay. This has come up a couple times on here, mostly probably brought up by me. But forever until recently. It's like here is the outline of my memories.
Mm-hmm.
I was X when my parents divorced, and X when I lived here, and so on. And then inside of those, firm moments in time, there's a smattering of different memories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I remember the time that da-da-da, and so on and so forth. And then you kind of look at the whole thing and you're like, how many of those actually are memories, and how many of those are 1,000% rooted in flipping through photo albums or hearing stories?
Right. Yeah.
And it's all of a sudden it's like, I don't know.
Right.
And and so I read something not too terribly long ago where it's like when you recall a memory, that version of the memory is now
Altered.
gone, and the recollection is now the new memory.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's like, whoa, I'm fucking falling fast,
Right.
like the jump program in the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's bananas shit to think about. So what light can you shed in that regard, just from your own experience, like memory wise, like, I think you were just touching on it a second ago, where it's like every time you altering of the memory, you know what I'm saying? Like, what can you add to that?
It's for that album in particular.
No, just memory in general. Like with like your sister didn't want to alter that memory by introducing dying, and so then this concept of every time you think of a memory, it's altered, and so on and so forth. I mean, I imagine you've given this.
Well, even like if you know what you want to do by age 32, like that's a memory that like was there and then almost like grew and grew and was like almost this thing to the point where I was like, I don't know if that's true.
I don't even know if that guy's my dad anymore. It's so.
But otherwise, I don't know. That's a tough one for me to like.
Well, it's foundation shaking.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, forever until recently, it's like this, that, and the other thing, and so on and so forth. Then it's like, dude, how do you know? And it's like, oh, now that you got me thinking about it, I don't know that I do know. Anyway.
Yeah, actually, now that you bring it up, there's like some discussion. So my sister, and I'm gonna be totally candid. So don't put anything about her out in the world, because I wouldn't want her to. I'm sure she wouldn't have a problem, but I wouldn't want to be talking about her on your podcast. But for the story, she grew up. I was always like the pretty skinny one, and she was like the athletic, like bigger one. And she was smarter than I was. She was a better athlete. So I always looked up to her in competition and was like, oh, if I could just be a better student, if I could just be better. And she's like, if I could just be more popular, if I could be, and so there's like this sort of like, this weird, and where am I going with the story? I just totally lost my train of thought.
Memory and.
Oh yeah. So, my sister, in everything that we've been dealing with my dad and stuff, it started therapy, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And most recently it has, like, in the last 2 or 3 years, seen a different therapist. And so my sister has some body image issues. She was always, much heavier than I was, and just never really proud of her body. And so they started working on body image, and with Sarah's confidence, and kind of like an obsession with like food and workout and just this sort of like angsty sort of stuff. And in her therapy, she realized that it was the way that my parents talked to her about her body that helped her like canonize this like notion about her body. Like my dad would always talk to her about being the tough one, or the one that was like a football, not feminine sort of terms, these sort of like de-feminizing sort of language. And my mom would always be like, we're Bertha and something, like my mom had a belly and she had a belly, but there were this language and this culture of talking about her body in a way that culture didn't talk about women's bodies at the time. It was part of why she's always had these and so in this last year, as my dad has been dying, and she's doing better now, but about a year ago, she was angry at my dad for like canonizing this thought process inside of her. Not angry, like she didn't like hate him, but she was just really conflicted and just like realizing how much that they're, and so that's like a relearning. And so as she's talking about this, I was trying to walk the line with like, it wasn't the reality that I experienced because that wasn't the language and those weren't the conversations that they had with me. So for the two of us to like grow up by the same parents but have these two completely different messages about body and image, and in some ways as she's talking about, because I didn't experience it, I didn't feel comfortable with this sort of like blanket, well he's, you know, blah 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 blah, you know, that sort of stuff. So there's this weird like sort of space where like I wanted to be supportive but it also wasn't my reality, and trying to negotiate that was
tough,
a little tough. Yeah, it was tough. And just trying to be there for my sister, and my sister trying to understand that it wasn't my reality, so I can't be like on her bandwagon, like, oh yeah. And she's come around, like my father was also a huge feminist. Like I was, you know, huge in math and science. I mean, we're both in, you know, I got a computer science major, so he's also a feminist, but also like, you know, talks about women's bodies.
Bunch of nerds, those Heimovics. My God.
Yeah, he's silent generation. He's like pre-boomer. So like, there's some stuff that's entrenched in there, just the way that. And I remember in the later days when he was still talking. We were watching women's rugby, and like just the way he was talking about I was like, and it was when Sarah was going through all that stuff. I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what Sarah's talking about. Like, why are they so big? Why they've got really, you know? And he's talking about these women, and I was like, oh well, yeah. But that's, I think, a way that memories change and are intact and kind of shift with the time. But like if you had asked my sister 15 years ago, like there wouldn't have been any sort of like awareness or realization of the way that the language that we used in our household impacting her self-confidence and all of that.
My sister is, and I've shared this with her a bunch. It probably came up on her episode.
Mm-hmm.
But memory has been just a goddamn flathead screwdriver in a Phillips screw world since she was tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one school of thought. It's not disputable. It's fact. I mean, from my experience, and
Mm-hmm.
I know everything. I'm the older brother. But then there was also an episode that I caused that may have, it did result in a head injury. So like those things, I don't know, but it has been, it was very much not on my radar in youth, not even into my. There might have been an isolated episode or two, but now there's a whole like hemisphere of just inaccurate, twisted, not sinister twisted, just
different perspectives,
like DNA helix, and it's like that's not how, and she acknowledges it on some level, and sometimes we have to like have a 2-second powwow and be like, that's didn't go down like that, man. It's and she believes me and participates in that conversation for however long it lasts, and then she goes back to being herself, and it's still it's still mapped that way. And like I want to be frustrated, get the right stuff in there, but there's nothing I can do about it.
Right, no.
And so it's like, okay, like it just, I can't, there's nothing I can do about it except for just,
okay.
Wow. I mean, and some of these things, like like I said, she believes me on some, but some it's like gospel, she's like, that's not, I'm like, dude, like if only there were footage. There's not footage, but
right.
Anyway, it's a really, really weird, notion here in the old human landscape. But from 86 to 89, Doolittle. Doolittle has not made anybody's list. It did make somebody's list, and it's somebody that you know. And they
Sorry.
When it came time to, because it was the same, hey, oh yeah, and then okay, let's start the conversation. Oh, so here's I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do a thing. Was the phrase? I'm gonna give you one high school, one college, and one adult or married, whatever album, and there were the three like very much fit in those time frames, and Doolittle was on the list, and I was like, ooh, wow, and then I was like, okay, well, here's the list of dates. Hello, and I can only two, maybe three times. And I should know you, if it's the third time, but I can't just be like, you gonna do it? You gonna do it? You gonna come? It's just like,
if it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. So a long time ago, I was like, oh, we're gonna talk about pixies, and then it never happened. So I never even got to the point of looking it up and revisiting it until we were firm. What a fucking banger of an album! Like I knew I couldn't by title say I know that track and that track, but I knew there was going to be three or four that I know really well, and it's like, nope, I know this whole, because I think I was just cassette, A to B and B to A, and just until I had my fix, and until the next time but this is a first purchase for you?
First CD
purchase. Yes. Okay. And you said the Plaza?
And I didn't even have a CD player.
Not even in your car?
No.
Or anywhere?
No, I got one shortly thereafter.
Just show people. Look at these liner notes. This is sexy. Why? Why did you? First of all,
there was a boy who had talked about it, and I think I listened to it, and I think it was "Here Comes Your Man" was probably the. Yeah, I think that one I had heard, and that was just enough. That was like, and it was kind of cool and different. It wasn't anything my parents knew, so there was a little bit of that. I didn't know them well when I bought it, but it by far would be the top.
Okay.
Album as far as second. I put Lauryn Hill's for as far as it becoming part of my DNA.
I see. Okay. Where is this music store on the Plaza?
It was Ville Square. You would go in McDonald's, and then you would go into there was an atrium sort of area where you could go up to the movie theaters, and it was there was a shoe store, and then there was a music store.
I could see the shoe store. Okay.
And it was, I think, next door to the shoe store.
Okay. And how long after you bought it did you have access to a CD player?
It wasn't very long. I mean, it was, I think, within a year or something, yeah.
And then
not a month, not a year.
Right. And then more. Did you get more Pixies? I forgot.
I don't remember.
This was 2 of 8 for them. 15 tracks, 38 minutes. Don't remember.
I don't know what would have been the next one. I don't think I would have bought a Pixies until later in high school. Okay. Sure. Just because it was still kind of it wasn't in me.
Right. Well, the dude that who the first person I traveled to do an episode for, he gave me a very big list, and took him a long time to get it to me. And when it's really interesting. I mean, I discovered one with you, across the life of the conversation, people just either forget things or they didn't read them, I mean, I probably told him 3 times, let's cap it at 5 for time's sake, otherwise we'll be
going for
all night. And 14, and I was like,
we're gonna be talking a while.
Okay. And so, but for whatever reason, I was like, I'll figure out a way to make this fun and different. So what I did was I split it into 2 sets of 7, and I called it your year list and my year list, and ran through in one and then the second, and the Breeders' Last Splash was on there, and it. I don't know. I did some shitty prep work, and memory wasn't firing until I'm sitting talking to him, and he's like, Kim Deal, That's her outfit, and she was the bass player from the Pixies, and I was like, I did know that like a lifetime ago,
Right?
but it was lost until this and so just very interesting what an outfit they were. And then, so she goes and does Breeders, and her sister, I think, was the drummer. And then, is it Frank Black? Does
Sugar.
yeah. So, well,
Was it Sugar?
so no, maybe yes, he does, but he also put out some solo stuff.
Yeah.
And I was near the end of my listen to Doolittle, and Frank Black and Pixie. It's come up 0 times since that person.
Oh, that's interesting.
Until like the last 3 days, and it's come up like 5 times.
Oh,
and I'm
really?
like, fucking what?
That's weird.
So I got close to the 13th or whatever the last track is, and I ran upstairs for something and came back down, and the album had ended in my streaming service, and pivoted to a Frank Black solo album. And so as I'm coming in the room, I'm like, what is that? And it sounded amazing. I was like, oh, and I ran over and I was like, fucking seriously? Like that? Wow, I might like this better than the Pixies shit that anyway.
Well, what I like about the Pixies was way ahead of its time.
Absolutely.
And like still is kind of ahead of its
I'm
time.
looking at it right now. I'm like 1989.
I know.
Like
It doesn't sound like 1989 music at all.
So
I have one funny story about it.
please.
I only did acid twice in my life.
Sorry. Were they?
Acid's not for me.
Oh, you just didn't get there yet.
No, yeah. Well, I was more of a shroom girl. But,
Well-
I only did acid. It might have only been one. That's one of those, like, did I do it? I always told myself I did 2, but I don't remember the other time.
Right.
But the first time I did acid, it didn't hit until, like, we started really late, and it didn't hit until really late, and I was working at Wade's and had to work the 7 a.m. shift on Sunday morning. And I was not still hallucinating, like, but I was still high. And I'm like in the busiest section in Wade's. Well, that's where I was. But on the way there, as I'm driving to work, I'm listening to Doolittle, and the song that's on is "Where Is My Mind."
Oh my god.
And I think it was on repeat because it was just like it was this like I was like
Or that was the acid.
Or the acid, yeah. I probably should not have been driving, but it was like, where?
It's fine.
As I'm going in, I'm still like, and so I went into work, and there was a boy who had a crush on me, one of the other waiters, and he was easy to talk to. I was like, yeah. I was like, I did some math. And so he followed me around like a puppy dog, filled up everybody's waters, got them, like my eyes were totally dilated, and I could barely like hold my shit together, but he had such a big crush on me. He basically did all my work for me.
Wow.
But that was a trip. Yeah.
I have done acid way more than twice. And I've found myself like, in public settings, like loudly advocating and sharing stories. And more than once, people have been like, why don't you lower your voice a little? I'm like, what? I don't understand. What? It's not like, what is the big deal? Like, I don't like, just, people aren't ready to hear. I'm like, it's fucking, what are you talking? Anyway, there was one occasion where my same newspaper buddy from episode 1, I think it was post Halloween, and it's like we were going to go, I think this is how this went down, Leftover Salmon, if you've ever heard of them, bluegrass band from like jammy bluegrass from Colorado. They've been around forever now. They were the headliners at a Halloween transvestite ball that the radio station put on, and so we're all going to that. In fact, somebody recently sent pics of us, and I this girl loaned me a dress and did my hair and makeup and gave me all the thing, and like I had my ass grabbed. And I fucking spun around, and the dude was like, and I was like, and he's like, and then it turned into, insert token insult of choice for me dressing that way.
Right. Of
You know,
course,
why you
yeah.
got to be a fill in the blank, you know, like, anyway, we were poor coordinators. And so like I think 2 people showed up with shrooms and somebody had a couple hits of acid and blah, blah, blah. And so the next day or a couple days later, we're sitting around in the newspaper office and my buddy's like, just pulls the little cigarette cellophane out of his wallet that has the 2 doses in there. And it's like 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I can blow off the rest of my course load for the day. All I got to do is, I worked full time in school, running different kitchens. So I most of my life was, you know, struggling through 9 a.m. class, and then I would have 4 to close, almost, you know, 5 nights a week, probably 1 5 to close in there. But I mean, they were all 11s. It was tough. And I was like, that should be, I could drop a dose now and in 6 hours time, like, get through that. So we get in my truck and we're driving south towards New Mexico, like with no gas, and quickly have to turn around. And we were like, let's go to this diner. And we go to this diner, and it is like the absolutely most bonkers breakfast scenario I've ever been a part of in my life. Like, there's a guy named Gary Smith who's an older, like, Native American, and there's this huge student senate situation where Juan Bliota, the like Native campus group, is lobbying for this thing, and the student senate is blocking it, and us, and my buddy is the editor-in-chief of the news. They're not covering it enough, and we go into this diner, and it's fucking full, like, just dozens and dozens of people in there, and the staff's super busy. There are 2 open seats in the whole place, and they're at the bar. And so, and I'm like, food, like, I don't if you put food in front of me, I don't even know if I would have the skills
to put it in your mouth and know what to do.
and then once it's in there, my system's not going to just be like, oh yeah, that's food, I know where it goes. It's everything is just. So we're sitting there, and this girl behind the counter is just fucking dreamy. I mean, she's wearing like the total, you know, corduroy patchwork hippie girl outfit, and she's just like, I've never seen anything. But I'm like, I can't even. And so he's kind of propping me up socially, and all of a sudden Gary Smith comes over, and he's like, Jason, I want to talk to you about, you know, this upcoming Senate thing. And I was just like, there was a what do you call it? Wall Street Journal left, and it was kind of open and unfolding. I would literally, and I'm just laughing behind it. And he, props to him, he makes it through this.
Oh my God, I can't imagine.
And then flicks the newspaper, and he's like, dude, how could you fucking leave? I was like, how did you do that? And I'm looking at the newsprint, and it's like code, you know. And so the girl is like, I'm like, I've got toast and hash brown, and she's like, guys, you need to like not be in
public.
Yeah, and they're wrapping up. It's, you know, she's off at 1:30, so she's like, you should come to my place, and we'll smoke some weed, and it'll chill you guys out. And Jason's like, I have to be in front of Farron Scott's 2:00 newspaper class to give a presentation. Farron Scott is the legal advisor to our newspaper. When we put it to bed, she comes over and cover to cover, corner to corner, kiver to kiver, as Bob Dylan used to say, to make sure there's nothing in there that we can get sued for.
Right.
And she has said, come to class, come to talk to these students. And I was like, you can't. He's like, I know. And he's now he's all worked up about the next time he runs into her, and he totally stood her up. But anyway, we go to this place and smoke bong loads, and she's got like 4 dude roommates that are all wearing the same fucking, and literally they put on Rusted Root and
start banging.
They had drum, and I was just like, this is fucking bananas. And coming out of the diner to go to my truck to drive to her place, I stopped, and like puked really hard in a bush,
Uh-huh.
and then everything turned up even more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Really?
like my
Uh-huh.
body was like, we gotta get rid of the bad stuff for it to really kick into high gear. And I was like,
No more absorbing this stuff.
I thought this was high gear. God damn it. Anyway, it's 3:00, and I'm like, I gotta go run a kitchen in an hour. Like, I don't know. And so that last hour was just like very, very high
Awful.
anxiety.
Uh-huh.
And I find, all right, I'm going. And I came in the front, and I made a beeline to the restroom because I was going to splash water in my face. That's going to really. And the GM has just finished peeing at the urinal and has pivoted and is zipping up his pants to go to the same hand sink and I'm like, he's like, oh, hi. And I'm like, and I think I just turned and faced the wall so that he could wash and then get out of there. And then I was trying to avoid him like the plague, but I'm sure he was like,
what's going on?
yeah, something's up with him. I mean, I finished the shift. I mean, I definitely stepped out back and vomited a couple or three more times before the night was over. But yes, it's amazing.
It lasts a long time.
Right. It does.
And it doesn't shake off.
No. So from 89 to 1996, this is also one that's never been on anybody's list. And I'm
disturbed by that?
I'm going to read what I have written down, and then I'm going to shut up because this album has meant so much to me for so many years. And in March, I think it was March 3rd, when the De La catalog finally was freed up from and became available on streaming. It has not been available for years and years since streaming. Anyway, stakes is high. Fourth of 9, 17 tracks, 68 minutes. This is a Doolittle polar opposite in that it's never been on anybody's list, but I've talked about it a lot in episodes. I have some notes, but I want you to go first because I won't shut up if I start.
It's just the soundtrack of coming an adult, like on my own. Tribe was on one. It was a CD that I made. Tribe. Which one would have? I don't even remember now. And Stakes is High was on the other, and I just go back.
Low in Theory.
Nope. It would
Which one
would it have been?
Midnight Marauders.
Yeah, Midnight Marauders.
Okay.
Was
Very
on
good
Stakes
album.
And it was just like I think I wore that thing, and it was just soundtrack of call. Like.
Same.
Like.
Same.
And you realize people's musical taste gets canonized inside their head between the ages of 18 and 21. Like that's when like your musical taste kind of gets etched in stone for life.
Okay.
And that was that process.
Pencil and paper for a handful of years coming into that.
Uh-huh.
But at some point you make some erases and some adjustments. I
just love De La Soul.
Okay. Well, this is one of the best hip hop albums ever recorded, and anytime De La comes up, the go-to for people is 3 Feet High and Rising, and I'm like, that's dog shit compared to Stakes High. I had it on cassette, still have it on cassette, and there is the end of side A. What's that?
Yeah.
So, Long Island Degrees is the song, and as the song fades, you get this little ragtimey, saloony kind of jingle, and it's gotta be an excerpt from a real life interview, and it's like a hillbilly white dude. Do you know the passage?
It's not clear in my head right now.
Okay, I'm quoting, so don't cancel me. You see, you get this bring ding kind of jingle, and then there's some noise, and all of a sudden this dude comes on and he goes, rap music, it just ain't no music in it. I mean, it's just niggers talking. And then the side ends and pop, you get the pop from the cassette. And it's like that quote is so
So
jarring in and of itself, and then to have the stop, and it's like, fuck, that's a real person that said that and meant it in the real life out there.
Right.
And they were like, in case you never believed in bigotry and whatnot.
Right.
And it's like, God damn it. I was hoping that it was all in the movies on you know what I'm saying? And so just that was where, I was like, man, there's that sucks. But thank you to them for putting it out there.
It's really interesting because I listened to a lot of hip hop through the 90s, and hearing about all the stuff that's now part of popular culture about racism and systemic everything and all that. They were rapping about it, talking about it, and they were just like, the media it was just noise that rappers made, and it wasn't, they actually had a platform or they actually had an issue, but they had, they were talking and pushing for everything that is finally happening 30 years later.
Yeah.
It's just really and it didn't feel like, I remember hearing about it, I was so disassociated, didn't realize that was real life, and that's the way that people actually had to exist, with people treating them that way.
Yeah. There's also a little interlude to close the record. And I don't think it's the same guy, but it sounds like a white person. But you get where it's outside, like an interview kind of thing. And he's like, he talks about momentum. Like I'm in a hole. Like I think the person is interviewing him because he's in a hole. He's in a shit life, in a shit world. And he's like, every time I get a little momentum, something or other happens and knocks me back, and then I don't get something decent to eat for 3 or 4 days, and it's just this cycle. And the clip ends with him saying, just stakes is high. And I mean, fucking chills. Goosebumps, right? It's like, yeah, man, it's like the whole race to become an adult. And then you get there and you're like,
what the fuck,
this is it? Fuck. Cartoons and cereal on Saturday morning was paradise.
Right. I can't believe nobody else has said that album. Really?
Yeah, man. In my opinion, track 6, Din It, hey, into 7 Breaks, which is the beacon on the hill for me, is the best 1-2 punch ever put on.
Oh, you think so?
I like the concept of an album. I like however it's written. Like if you're the front woman and you write the shit, pencil and paper, acoustic guitar, and you bring it to everybody else and they contribute, and then you go in the studio and you make a record. It's a whole experience. I love the concept of an album. And fucking fights happen and bands break up and people run out of money and record labels say, go fuck yourself. We gave you and what's the cover art going to be, and how is the credit going to be, what's the track listing, what songs aren't going to make it, right? So for hip hop / rap, that 1-2 punch is the best, because Din It is beautiful, and then Breaks, it bleeds right into Breaks, and somebody goes disco, and they just say the word disco, and it's and then you get really, really well crafted verses and a chorus. It be your listening pleasure while you're doing your chores, no matter where you're from, it's for you and yours, bringing it back to the breaks like the yes, yes, y'all. So let it be your anthem while you're having a ball. And then he goes into a mother gets shot by a crackhead son. That's the break, all the way down to your boyfriend made you a carrier of HIV. And it's just like, fuck, this is so real and set to such beauty that it's
ethereal. And
it's the creme de la creme. I'm just so stoked that you had this on your list. Like I couldn't, I'm exaggerating. I like to get hyperbolic from time to time, but when I'm looking at your list, I only see that. I'm that's really... and you, I believe, asterisked track 12. It's so easy.
Yeah.
What was?
I don't know.
Okay.
It just. feels right inside.
Okay.
Just something about the melody. I don't know.
Well,
maybe there's a memory that's tied to it that
okay.
I don't remember, and maybe if I sat with it and just like close my eyes and let my brain neurons do their thing, but probably a memory would be my guess.
Thank you. I've had to okay, I did one episode. I had a guest back, and we went through the whole Tribe and the whole De La discographies in one sitting. So I got to
really dig in.
But we were anyway. Much cooler if it's random and a part of somebody's list. Right. But 1998, only one record, only one studio record, 16 tracks, 77 minutes, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Talk to me about it.
I don't know what, I obviously found Lauryn Hill through the Fugees,
right?
The Fugees, that was good, but I think all of the albums that I gave to you are all albums that I've never once gotten tired of. Like there's songs where I'm like, I'm over that. I don't need to listen to that. But each one of those I can listen to, and there's none of this like it's old. But my boyfriend, my husband, broke up with me for a small period of time, and I remember just Lauryn Hill was. I used to love him.
Salve for that wound.
And so there's a little bit of that, and that would be typically a bad memory, but it wasn't. I just love Lauryn. Like it's just the sound of her voice, the rhythm, the harmony, just everything.
I've called it's made one person's list. A record the world needed without us really knowing that we needed it. And then once it was here, it was like, you can't have, this is here to stay. Like this
and
is.
You can't have anything else like it.
No.
Ever again.
I know.
Because I'm going to go off the La La Land. And
it has aged flawlessly.
I do feel like those three kind of have a, They don't sound like they're from the time. I'm talking about Stakes is High, Lauryn Hill, and Doolittle. They don't sound like they're from the. I mean, maybe there's so much in my brain, but they don't sound like they come from the eras.
Think about what the rest of the music world was doing in 1986 when Graceland came out.
Right. Yeah.
And everybody's technology and new way, and he pulls back and goes,
diamonds on the sole of her shoes,
I put this on the thread with the boys when Miseducation landed on somebody's list the first time. And I said, what do you think is the best album closer you've ever heard? And there's a lot of good answers. And I tried to say, you got to think about the album as a whole. It's fluid.
People don't think about music like that anymore.
I know. Fuck those people. But point being, my answer is Tell Him. Because and that's not to take away from anything else that happened.
Right, just the right.
It's so, the harmonies, the phrase, it'll be all right, or just be all right. I mean, is that, I bet, it's valuable in times of need. Right, I mean, hopefully you have a human that is there talking to you as you're going through whatever you're going through. And it's not always, there are times where, it's powerful. And
I think that album is one that I always feel like there's always, I'm in a completely changed mental state because my emotions have gone on a ride in a way that I'm kind of altered by it.
Well, the harmonies, the music, even the interludes. I mean, you get this opening kind of classroom with the kids, and they're talking about love and listening to how kids describe love.
And I could listen to that over and over.
I know. And then you get to there's an interlude a couple or three tracks later where he's calling roll, and she's not there, and I'm like, fuck, where, what do we do? We gotta go find her. Why isn't she there? But great list. Thank you for sharing it. I wrap up with goofy questions.
Okay.
And then it's 25 minutes till your bedtime, and you got a little bit of a drive home. Any Do you want to plug anything? Photos, website, social media?
I have a website, yes, megkumin.com, but
Okay.
it's not very updated. But
What does that mean?
It's got all my photography, and I just haven't put anything up in the
But
last
the
couple
stuff
of
that's
years.
up there
Yeah.
is
Oh,
very
yeah, it's
beautiful.
Good. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Go look at that
I
shit.
plug my class if anybody's going to KU. I teach in the fall. I teach freshmen. My class is a lot of fun.
Okay.
And we do really cool things. And I'm looking for good students,
And
so I plug that.
what's it called again?
Creativity University in You and the Creative
Like
Mindset.
creativity,
comma,
university, comma, and you.
That one's not my title. I was given that title. The Creative Mindset is the one that I came up with.
Okay. Very cool. So, here we go.
Okay.
These are just quirky. Mm-hmm. You are a you're a read receipts on person.
Oh.
I think that's enough said right there. So, tell me if you happen to have considered it about that choice, what the flip side looks like.
I had not really ever considered it a choice. I just there's
Default
a lot of default,
setting, and you just okay.
Never.
Okay.
I don't really have a problem if people know if I've seen it and not reply. Like
that's the crux of the.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's why people turn it off, right? They don't want people to know when they've seen it.
Well, or like I'm, for me, I'm a big barrel of mess in terms of emotions and whatnot. But it's like being chosen, being validated, being acknowledged. Like those are all probably things that were underserved and so like I don't want to do that to I don't want you to see that I read your text and haven't replied, even if my reason for not replying it is perfectly rational.
I've been through enough shit, like with my dad and my mom, and I've been busy and I'm on shoots that like, a whole day goes by and I just literally don't have either the emotional bandwidth, the physical time or whatever.
Totally.
And I'm at peace. Like if you have a problem with me like having a life and prioritizing what needs to be done, then
I guess the better question would be default setting or by choice, right? Right. To start with, and then maybe.
Well, I just didn't even know that it was.
Well, I didn't either until.
I mean, I guess I did because I've seen that other people don't, but I just never.
I've gotten on the dating apps twice. Once, it was August of 2018, so close to a half a year after initial separation, and I got on 3 different ones, and I'm not even kidding you. All of a sudden, I was like, "Holy shit! I have been swiping
the wrong way
for 3 days." And mostly ignoring every other thing and all the important things, my kids. And I was like, delete. Like, go, that has to go away. And then December, so 4 months later, I was like, maybe I'm more disciplined or whatever. I'll try it again. Ended up going on a date, and a mom of 3, I think. We met at one spot and got a drink at the bar, and we're having our very initial like first in-person encounter, and somehow the concept of kids and dating and texting and so forth came up, and she was like, I just remember this one phrase, and I think maybe her daughter had gone through something that had been like some version of heartbreak or whatever, and she tells the whole tale, and she says, I mean, he left me on red, Mom. And I'm in my mind, I'm thinking the color, like what does that mean? Right. And she's like, no. I'm like, oh. So ever since then, I'm like, I see somebody with it on, and I'm like, for no good reason other than that experience. So, you are given the ability to visit your past self at any age you're choosing. What age are you choosing, and what are you saying?
"17-year-old self, Mike Kennedy and I had a conversation outside Shawnee Mission East.
Good people.
And he asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said, I want to be a National Geographic photographer. But I can't do that. It was all one word. I want to be a National Geographic photographer, but I can't do that. And this sort of like this, I would tell myself, you can do whatever you decide. I mean, obviously within bounds, but you gotta make your shit happen.
I love it.
I don't know that I feel like I need to do that. I feel like the journey, like having not pursued that at that age and like becoming a software developer and doing all the things are very much like who I am. So I don't know that I would actually undo that if I could. But if there were a moment where I wanted to impact myself, I think it would probably be then.
Cool.
I think that's why I like teaching 18-year-olds so much, because they're still at that age where they're dismissing themselves, but still young enough that like they haven't like
a little malleable.
Closed any doors.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
If we can agree that the bird is an unacceptable road rage reaction in this crazy day and age, plenty of people I want to flip off all the time, but they might fucking shoot me. You know what I'm saying? So what's the best way to let someone know they just made a huge piece of shit move behind the wheel of their car?
Just a little beep.
Okay. I had...
Or I'd ignore it.
Okay. Well, but that's not... You're not engaging in road rage if you ignore it. No. Not that I'm encouraging it, but I think among many, like people, obviously a lot of people are distracted driving because they're on their phones, but the amount of people I see still holding their phone, whether it's this or
that,
and even if they're not fucking focused.
Right.
They're either driving recklessly or super slow, and just it's
distracted.
It's hard. And then like the workforce is, so if you're running a generic errand, you got to go to Walmart and get Band-Aids or something, and so there's all this hectic and then you get there and the employees are absolute dog shit too. It's like, why wouldn't I just get everything from Amazon and never step out into this ever
that world?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I had that question stems from I don't remember who or when it was, but they told me I decided recently that whenever somebody does a shitty thing driving, and if I wind up even with them in eyesight, I fell out of my chair because they're gonna be like, oh, damn. Like they're not gonna get mad because it's not the anyway. Is there 1, 2, 4? Okay, that's weird. Is there a genre or an artist or a song that, were you to hear at a social function, would make you visibly cringe? And if so, what is it?
Yes, but I don't know.
For me, it's Bon Jovi and Meatloaf. Like, I'll wait outside.
Oh, Phil Collins. I really don't like Phil Collins. I don't know what it is. Not even Genesis. I know. It's weird.
Do you know Amanda Yates? She was a year ahead of us.
I know the name, but I don't.
You'd probably recognize her face. I usually see her once a year, Labor Day weekend. I go out for some shows in Colorado, and she's always there too. Recently told me that exact same thing.
Really?
And
it's like cilantro for me or something. Like, I'm just like, I can't.
Oh my God. I eat my Phil Collins with double cilantro. But there are, you're not aware of it until you're aware of it, but there are like so many places, i.e. the grocery store, where there's a lot of Phil Collins just being put out there into the world, and you get some on you. And I love, so, and of course, since then, immediately, the places that I go on my phone, Phil Collins memes and Phil Collins. Every time I see one, I send it to her. And she's like,
"That's funny."
One the other day, it's been a couple months ago. I sent one to her, and she was like, "I just walked into the grocery store, and I just sent her a meme, and she's like, I'm way too hungover to deal with any of this, so you have to stop." Let's see here. Okay. Last but not least, complete this sentence for me, please. The world would immediately become a better place in which to live, if only.
we could live in each other's mind.
What? What does that mean? Like read each other's thoughts? Live in each other?
Feel each other's emotions and thoughts.
That's some fucking outer space AI wild.
Well, I've often wondered, I was like, would there be evil, would there be war if you couldn't keep something secret? Like, if you had to always, like, have the truth visible to the outside world, like, would it be a better place? Would it, like...
Fascinating.
Because then you would always know what people's motivations were,
Right,
you know?
right.
And even, like...
That would become your nickname. They'd be like, that's fucking greedy Greg over there. Still trying to take more.
Robert Sapolsky came out. You know Robert Sapolsky? He's a big neuroscientist. But he came out, I think it came out today on, what did he call it? Determined? But he's a philosopher, language, whatever, but he thinks that nobody has free will.
Whoa.
And that's kind of the conclusion in reading a lot of the books that I've read by. He doesn't usually talk about that, but I think we have the illusion of free will. But if we could read each other's thoughts, then you would know when someone's lying. You would know when someone is like, you know, like when someone's girlfriend is needy. They're needy because their dad was, you know, mean to them when they were little. But you'd like see that memory and you'd understand why it is that they're needy, and you'd be able to like feel their need and meet them where they need to be more compassionately.
Wow.
I don't know if that's the right answer, but
Of course it is. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
thank you. It was
there
fun.
are a million reasons between the origin of our communication and today that you could have just not even gotten back to me.
Mm-hmm.
But time passed, and then you did on your own.
Yeah.
You were like, hey. And I was like,
Well, I finally have bandwidth.
right? My life finally stopped careening out of control, I believe, was the phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see it, you know, like it was, as soon as you wrote those words, I was like, amen. I didn't ever want to be somebody like, you know, another buzz in checking in and, but, so thank you for initially saying yes, for circling back with me multiple times, for giving me a list, for giving me a good chunk of your evening tonight. I mean, after last night and then tonight, you need to speed home.
Well, tomorrow when I'm teaching, we're doing Legos, so I don't have to have my A game on.
Okay, but you still need that 8 hours if you can
I do need
get
that
close.
Hours. And I have to go. I have a 9 a.m. that I need to. So no late days.
Right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I said yes because I love people who make stuff, and I love people who connect with people, and I just really appreciate your love of music and culture, and it's a cool.
Thank you.
Life's short, and
right.
And as we know, a lot of this like disappears from our brains, and now it'll live forever, like on a podcast.
Well,
what was my memory back then? Oh, that's what my memory. Oh,
yeah.
It's not that anymore, is it?
Yeah, and you know, a lot of talked about this very briefly, but a lot. Hey, how's the podcast? You know, it's alive and breathing, and oftentimes, what you need to do is. And it's like, you're absolutely, all the people that say that are right. But I can't give any more time, energy, money, this is what it is. And so, if 6 people watch this, in the next year or whatever,
it's making art, it's connecting,
but maybe later somebody's going to watch it and go, and get something out of it, and I don't know, whatever. For now, it's just for us. So
right. Well, I worked when I was a software developer. I worked in the Natural History Museum. I wrote. So biologists go out, collect beavers and plants. They bring them back to museums and they need to catalog them. And so having worked in a museum, like the amount of information that's important, like, so there's like a specimen from 100 years ago. There's also like the little piece of paper where the person like drew a little map. And like, there's all this like contextual information that at the time just seems kind of like peripheral, but like 100 years later is really, really valuable. And if you can capture it at some point, you can come back and visit it. And I think that there'll be a wealth of information for like maybe 200 years from now. Someone's just like, what were people doing, and like what were they thinking about music? And this would be like a nice repository,
right?
Commentary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I need a pee.